Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Pirates. Obtain the Big Mom talent at the beginning. Chapter 21. Early the next morning, in Marine Fando, in the Marshal's office of the Navy headquarters, Warring States was sitting in the main seat with a smile. Just yesterday, he received the latest news from Luo Shu, and once again annihilated a man with a bounty of over 100 million. Pirates. Although there is no brain to act as the opponent's identity this time, Warring States will not doubt that Luo Shu can deceive him on this matter. This is completely unnecessary. Less than a month after he left the headquarters, he had already wiped out 5 pirate groups, 4 of them, and their captains' bounties were about 100 million belly. This was an outstanding achievement. It seems that when he returns to Marina Fando, it will be time for him to be promoted to Rear Admiral at the Navy headquarters. Warring States stroked his beard and thought secretly in his heart. Yes, he was very satisfied with Luo Shu's performance in the first half of the Grand Route. Only in this way can he be worthy of his cultivation. It seems that the little monster in our navy is destroying the pirate group again. He, who was sitting nearby and dealing with documents, looked at the smiling Sengoku and couldn't help but joke aloud. With her wisdom, she could guess it even if the other party didn't explain it. Yes. He wiped out the Blood Hand pirates yesterday and used Garp's move of throwing cannonballs to blast the entire Root Island into the sea. Now that island has been wiped off the map. Warring States nodded and said with some emotion, his words revealed his optimism for Luo Shu and a little envy. Yes, when he was a young man, he didn't want to be as outstanding as Luo Shu, but at that time he is just a naval cadet with some talents, and there is no way to compare with Luo Shu. Including Garp, the strongest among their group, at Luo Shu's age, his performance is still ordinary, even if he surpasses the others. Naval cadets are not that exaggerated. What a funny guy. When he comes back from the Grand Line this time, you should promote him to Rear Admiral at the Navy headquarters, right? He smiled, pretending not to see Sangguo's gaffe, but asked softly. How could she not hear the emotion in Sangguo's words, but she is more realistic and recognizes her own situation. She is getting old when she is old. Even if you have strength, you can't resist the invasion of time. Although the world of One Piece has surgical fruits, pure gold, or some drugs that slow down aging, none of them can be easily obtained. That's right, I have decided to promote Luo Shu when he comes back. Moreover, this kid has also recruited another talent for our navy, Deadpool Thor. You should have heard of this name. Currently, Thor has agreed to Luo Shu to become a navy. Stay with Luo Shu now. Warring States did not hide his thoughts, and also told Thor's story. This is what Luo Shu told him yesterday. That bounty hunter who is only 25 years old. I have indeed heard that the Navy tried to woo him, but was rejected by the other party. Now that he can join the Navy, it is a good thing. Even if he becomes Luo Shu's subordinate, as long as he is in the camp of our Navy, there will be no problem at all. He held his chin with one hand, thought for a moment, and raised an eyebrow. As the Chief of Staff of the Navy headquarters, she handled a lot of information. In just a moment, she thought of Thor. In her opinion, the other party only needs to join the Navy. It doesn't matter who his subordinate is. Does it mean that if he becomes Luo Shu's subordinate, he can ignore the orders of the Warring States period in front of him? Obviously, that is impossible. People are the most important thing. Just clarify your position. It is impossible for Warring States to break up with Luo Shu, so Luo Shu's subordinates will not conflict with Warring States. This is the fact. Drake obeys Luo Shu's orders, but if Warring States gives any orders, without affecting Luo Shu's interests, he will still be very active in completing it. In this way, after chatting with he for a while, Warring States ordered the messenger to tell the news to Zepha, who was in the Naval Academy. As an old friend for decades, he could guess that Zepha would miss Luo Shu very much, so he sent the news to reassure him so that he could better train the next generation of newcomers for the Navy. You are worthy of being my disciple. Did you all hear that? That kid Luo Shu is about the same age as you, and is now a colonel at the Navy headquarters. And in the first half of the Grand Line, he wiped out 4 pirate groups whose captains had a bounty of nearly 100 million. When he comes back this time, he might be promoted again. You should all regard Luo Shu as a role model. You must complete the training goals set by me every day. Otherwise, you will only become cannon fodder in the future, and you may die in some war. When the time comes, do you want me to collect the bodies for you? Everyone, stand still. Keep training. As expected from the Warring States period, Zepha was immediately overjoyed after receiving the news from the messenger, and he praised Luo Shu in his heart. However, when he saw that he was also a student in the elite class in front of him, because he had just completed his after he was tired and breathing heavily, his face immediately darkened, and he changed the subject and yelled at all the students. He believed that although Luo Shu was very talented, his hard work were not enough. It is also very important, otherwise he would never have the strength he has now. So he was very dissatisfied with the other students he taught, hoping that they could pursue Luo Shu as a target, so that his strength could quickly improve. Now Binz, Ain and others were unlucky. They could only drag their exhausted bodies and get up from the ground to prepare for the next training subjects. Even Ain, who had always worked very hard, had an idea at this moment. That is, talent is really important. Luo Shu trained for a day, and the speed of strength improvement seemed to be dozens of times that of theirs. It was the first time she felt this powerless. As for Binz, she was too tired to say no. When he spoke, the hatred for Luo Shu in his heart increased a little bit, but he did not dare to say it out. Just a few days ago, Zepha personally told him that if he goes against Luo Shu in the future and anything happens, don't come to him as a teacher. It can be seen that Zepha can't hold a bowl of water levelly at all, and he does it openly. While Binzi feels anxious, he also always keeps himself calm and tries not to think about the scene hidden in his heart. Another week passed, and Luo Shu's warship finally approached Gaia Island. Unknowingly, it had been a full month since he left the Navy headquarters. During this period, he had gained a lot. In addition to his achievements, the most important thing was it was Thor's subordinate. The other party's injuries had been completely recovered 2 days ago. This was also thanks to the ancient species Emperor Crocodile Fruit. Not only did it not leave any hidden injuries, but its strength was also growing rapidly. Before, Drake was against he was not very convinced, but after being taught a lesson twice, he was no longer arrogant, and instead continued to practice hard every day. Luo Shu is very satisfied with this. He likes his subordinates to compare with each other, so as to stimulate their potential and improve their strength faster. Sir, Gaia Island is coming. Thor, who was wearing a white suit and a cloak of justice, walked slowly to the deck and reported to Luo Shu. Because of his tall and strong stature, and with this set of decorations, he was more oppressive than before. If he didn't have a badge representing his military rank, he would probably be recognized by some uninformed people as a senior official of the Navy headquarters. System. Open Thor's panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Name. Thor. Special talent. Top brutal strength. Dominance. Intermediate armed color. Intermediate wisdom color. Physical skills. Advanced. Sword skills. Not beginner. Ability. Animal system. Ancient species. Emperor Crocodile Fruit unawakened. Comprehensive strength. S+. As expected, it is indeed a top-notch ancient devil fruit. It actually improves its special talents and changes its overall strength. Not bad. Get ready to land on the island. Luo Shu secretly communicated with the system in his mind. After checking Thor's panel, he nodded inconspicuously. What he did before was right. This devil fruit is indeed very suitable for a body like Thor with special talents. A master of magic. Give the other party a few more years to transform into an SSS and enter the ranks of monsters. It will not be difficult. Sir, do you also believe in the existence of empty islands? After conveying Luo Shu's order, Thor couldn't help but asked aloud. He had lived in the first half of the Grand Line for many years and had naturally heard a lot about Sky Island, but he only regarded it as a story and did not think it was Sky Island. The island really exists. And Derek, who had finished his training, shamelessly came up and pricked up his ears to hear what Luo Shu, his own commander, had to say. Hey, at that time, half of Gaia Island was carried up to an altitude of 10,000 meters by the rising sea current, and it never fell down, thus forming an empty island. This is true. The legendary island is located at an altitude of 10,000 meters. It is not difficult to log in, but it seems that we are not very lucky, that weird ocean current has not formed yet. Luo Shu grinned, looked at the sky, and said in a deep voice. Having watched the original anime, of course he knew about the existence of Sky Island. Apart from that, Who else could have thought of someone who is known as the strongest and natural devil fruit actually appeared on that legendary island and was eaten by a gangster, thus treating himself as a god? See that abandoned ship plank? Not surprisingly, it should be a product hundreds of years ago, and the reason why it appears there must be that it fell from the sky. Luo Shu, who said this, suddenly discovered something floating on the sea not far away. He pointed at it and motioned for the two of them to watch it. Quote, quote. In this regard, the two of them didn't say anything. With their eyesight, they could see that the ship plank was very old, and they believed most of Luo Shu's words. A few minutes later, the warship docked at the shore of Gaia Island. During this period, many civilians stood watching from a distance, but no one dared to come forward. Of course the Navy recognized them, but they did not know why the other party came to Gaia Island, so out of caution, they chose to wait and see. During the next period of time, you two will take these Marines to repair on Gaia Island and clean up the pirates nearby. But before that, Thor, I need to let you throw me onto an empty island. Luo Shu looked around at the warships in the world, and suddenly felt bored. So he didn't want to waste time, so he first gave an order, and then told Thor. Originally, he was thinking of asking Drake to throw him up, but now that he has subdued this subordinate with special talents, in order to avoid making mistakes, it is inevitable to choose the opponent. Sir, you mean, I throw you to an island 10,000 meters high in the sky? How is this possible? That powerful impact will definitely hurt you. Sure enough, after hearing Luo Shu's whimsical words, Thor opened his mouth, but did not say anything at first, and then shook his head vigorously. He was not optimistic about Luo Shu's plan. It was 10,000 meters high in the air. If thrown upward from the bottom, the impact would still be huge. What's more, if there really was an island, the force of hitting it would be conceivable, and it might all be shattered into pieces. Just do whatever I ask you to do, and stop talking so much nonsense. The corners of Luo Shu's mouth twitched, as if he was a little embarrassed about this, but he didn't want to explain too much, but said forcefully to Thor. Good. But sir, please don't let anything happen to you. Otherwise I will never forgive myself in this life. Thor originally wanted Drake to come forward and stop Luo Shu's crazy plan, but no matter what, Drake turned his head to the side in a daze, as if he didn't see anything, and it seemed that it had nothing to do with him. A high-spirited attitude. Rest assured, it's only 10,000 meters in the air. Even if I jump from it, I won't be hurt. Let's start. Remember to use your full strength, otherwise you will have to throw it a second time. In the end, Luo Shu could only say with a helpless smile, but in the end he told Thor that he didn't want to be thrown away a second time. Okay sir, as you wish. Drink. Whoosh. After making some preparations, Thor carried Luo Shu on his shoulders and roared. Then his whole body arched, and his steel-like muscles appeared. Then, he suddenly rushed forward. With the help of that with a strong force, Luo Shu was pushed out, and a sound of breaking wind was heard. Luo Shu's whole body was shot into the sky like an arrow from a string. I hope nothing happens to him, sir. Looking at Luo Shu who was moving at high speed in the air, Thor swallowed unnaturally and murmured in a low voice. Don't worry, sir, since he can issue that kind of order, it proves that he must be sure. Let's ask the civilians if there are any pirate groups nearby. Drake is not that worried. In his opinion, nothing can happen to Luo Shu. His parents are like god-like figures, omnipotent. If you have time to think about useless things, it is better to finish them earlier, tasks assigned previously. Alas, that's all it can do. Thor opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he couldn't say anything. He could only sigh helplessly, indicating that he was still a little worried in his heart. At this time, Luo Shu was flying happily in the sky, except for his hair and clothes. Apart from the chaos caused by the strong wind, there was nothing bad about him. Especially when he felt himself passing through layers of clouds, Luo Shu actually wanted to fly, although he could not use the moon to fly. Bu flew in the sky for a short time, but it was not really flying after all. Moon step. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Luo Shu forcibly stabilized his body, performed the moon step, and stepped on the white island cloud. After sorting himself out for a while, he activated his seeing and hearing hockey to sense the surroundings. Information. If my physical skills reach the top, maybe I can use the moon step to land on the Sky Island, and I won't have to be so embarrassed. Fortunately, Thor's strength was enough, and he actually brought me directly to Bika Island. Wait, wasn't Bika Island supposed to be destroyed by that guy from Enelu? Could it be that because I came a little early, Enelu hasn't eaten the thunder fruit yet? When he found out that he was on Bika Island, Luo Shu cursed a few times, and then he froze on the spot. Yes, he had always thought about accepting Enelu as his subordinate, and he didn't even think about it. Thinking about it, at this time, Enelu may not have eaten the devil fruit, which is known as the strongest natural type. That's right, he must not have eaten that devil fruit, otherwise with his character, he would have jumped out to punish the Skylanders living on this island. After thinking carefully for a while, Luo Shu confirmed what he was thinking. It was the strongest natural devil fruit. Of course he was very interested in it. He was worried about what devil fruit he would choose in the future. Originally, he was worried about it. He thought about killing Whitebeard and then looking for the shocking fruit, but now that he had a better and more comprehensive thunder fruit, his previous thoughts were naturally forgotten by him. This thunder fruit not only gave him superpowers of seeing and hearing, hockey can also be used to temper the body. At the same time, it can achieve a speed faster than that of Kizaru, and can fly freely. It can be said that there are many benefits. Coupled with a wide range of AoE attacks, it can be said to be devastating. It's not an exaggeration. It's better to keep a low profile first and search around. As expected, the devil fruit should be on Bika Island. Luo Shu calmed down and quickly made his own decision. He was not going to use his super strength to crush them and force Sky Island people to search for devil fruits for him. Instead, he planned to search for them on his own. Otherwise, who knows what would happen? There are people who don't care about their lives. When they are looking for devil fruits, they will eat them directly after they find them. Even if they kill the other party, it will be difficult to relieve the anger in his heart. So in order to avoid such a bloody thing from happening, Luo Shu, this was the only last resort. But before that, he did not forget to use the phone bug to contact his two subordinates, so that they would not worry, and at the same time, wait for him a little longer. This search for fruits cannot be done in a day or two. Found it. Just like that, one day passed. Now Luo Shu was wearing clothes bought from Kongdao, and a pair of wings appeared on his back. Of course, that was when he killed an Kongdao man not long ago. He destroyed his body and left behind only these wings to make himself no different from other Sky Islanders. As for whether it would be a bit cruel to do so, Luo Shu did not feel pity for this. In his mind, if he hadn't been able to directly force Sky Islanders to search for devil fruits for him, he would have already shown his absolute strength to force these Sky Islanders to work for him. If he dared to disagree, he would just send them on their way. Where did he get so many of them? Nonsense. That guy is here again, it's so abominable. Why don't the guards capture him and kill him? Yes, every time he came, it happened that the guards were not patrolling, otherwise he would have suffered a terrible end. But his strength is very strong, how can we ordinary people resist? Just laugh secretly, if the other party hadn't collected a lot of money, we would definitely have starved to death before him. Quote. At this time, a young man with long ears, but no wings, and a very special appearance appeared on the street. He went door to door to collect protection fees, but they were mostly shops. This also caused the bosses who had paid the money to gather together. Complaining together. System. Open his panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Name. Enelu. Special talents. None. Domineering. Beginner's knowledge, physical skills, beginner. Swordsmanship. Not yet started. Ability. None. Comprehensive strength. B. This is rubbish. It seems that I really underestimated the thunder fruit. This is known as the strongest natural devil fruit. Luo Shu, who was standing in the distance, looked at Anelu's panel and cursed secretly. He originally thought that Anelu should have a special talent, but the reality is very cruel. The other party is about to be 3 years old. At 10 years old, his strength is still so pitifully low. If he hadn't eaten the thunder fruit, he would never have become the god of Sky Island in this life. No wonder Luffy was able to defeat him. There is indeed some truth in this. Luo Shu is now treating Annie. Lu was really disappointed. This kind of thing was really not qualified to be cultivated by him. The important thing was that the thunder fruit was reserved by him and it was impossible to give it to Enelu, so he couldn't find a second one for him. If he eats it, he can only become a heartless person once. Why do I feel like someone was spying on me just now? Enelu, who was holding a lot of money, suddenly turned around and looked around for a while. After realizing that no one was focusing on him, he frowned and thought to himself. It turns out that he relied on with his own domineering power. He sensed Luo Shu's gaze just now, but the moment he turned around, Luo Shu had already left, so he naturally didn't find Luo Shu. As for the systematic snooping, let alone Enelu, even if it was Galdi Roger who was reborn, with his power of seeing and hearing, he could listen to the sounds of all things, and he couldn't even detect that kind of transcendent existence. Let's start looking for it in this jungle first. I'm really looking forward to the strongest natural devil fruit. At this moment, Luo Shu has arrived in front of a forest. He decided to start searching here first. After all, it is almost impossible for devil fruits to grow in the public eye. Of course, this conclusion is his guess. That kind of mysterious thing, there was no order at all. Looking at the dense island under his feet, Luo Shu even felt that it seemed to be man-made, and the fact that trees, flowers and plants could grow on such a thing was simply beyond the reach of ordinary people. I understand. I have to admit that the world of One Piece is not only very big, but also very strange. Whether it is animals, plants, or people of various races, there is a big gap from the previous life. If not talking about anything else, the individual gap is the biggest. Conspicuous. Time passed quietly, and soon a week passed. Apart from eating and resting, and daily practicing domineering, Luo Shu was searching Bika Island everywhere. During this period, he did not attract anyone's attention, including the guards. Treat him as an ordinary Sky Islander. Another forest has been searched. Where is that thundering fruit? In the past few days, Luo Shu searched through several large forests, but found nothing. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. Bika Island is not very big. Even if he turned it upside down, it would not take long. He only complained slightly about the time. It didn't mean that he was impatient. Hey, boy, I think you are very unfamiliar. You must not have been from this street before, right? Do you know that you, Mr. Aniro, and I are responsible for the protection fees of this street? If you are wise, please hand over the money in your hands quickly, or else I will slap you all over the place. Just when Luo Shu was about to get up and leave the restaurant, a figure stopped him and threatened him. This person was Enelu. He was collecting protection fees. After discovering that Luo Shu was after meeting the unfamiliar face, he immediately came up with other ideas and prepared to blackmail the other party to increase the money in his pocket. Young man, he is a well-known bully in our street. You'd better not mess with him. If you don't have any money, I can give it to him for you. Before Luo Shu could speak, the owner of the shop came over and comforted Luo Shu. He also saw Luo Shu coming to his house continuously, eating food for a week, spending a lot of money, and adding on the other hand, if the other party refuses Aniro, it will be easy for him to have a conflict and start a fight in his store, which will cause him to suffer even greater losses. Hehe, sorry, I don't have money. Of course, even if I did, I wouldn't give you this kind of garbage. Get out of here while I'm in a good mood, otherwise the consequences will be serious. Luo Shu slowly stood up from his seat, looked at Enelu who was taller than him, and said with a sneer. He really didn't expect that the other party would be so bold. Yeah, ha 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 ha, how dare you talk to Uncle Enel like this? You are dead. Click. Ah, Enelu laughed in anger, but just when he punched Luo Shu, there was a sound of bones breaking, and then, his face was distorted and he started to cry. At that moment, he felt his fist hit the steel, and the force of the shock shattered the bones of his entire arm. Tell me where your home is and I will take you back. Luo Shu, who originally thought about killing Enelu directly, suddenly had an idea and an idea appeared in his mind. Could the thunder fruit be near Enelu's residence? So he grabbed Enelu's clothes with one hand. Leader, speaking to him in a commanding tone. Okay, I'll take you there right now. Enelu, who was granted amnesty, quickly nodded in agreement and began to guide Luo Shu. However, he was full of hatred for him in his heart, and he was even thinking about how to kill the monster in front of him. He can bully ordinary Sky Island people. It can be seen that Eniru is not a good person, and in the original work, he destroyed the entire Beak Island, which all shows that he has a cruel character and is ruthless. He will do whatever it takes to achieve his goal. However, let alone this last point, it is different from Luo Shu. Much like him, he is also a person who can give up everything in order to achieve his own goals. This is your home. You can die. Boom. After only a few minutes, Luo Shu took Annie Lu all the way and felt the residence of Annie Lu. It was far away from the crowd and very quiet. No one came here at all. In the end, Luo Shu rewarded Annie Lu. Lu punched his head so hard that it exploded. It could be said that he could not die anymore. After Luo Shu logged on to Beak Island, he never thought about accepting Enilu as his subordinate, let alone what happened to them before. After some minor friction, he simply killed the person in front of him. This was just a matter of convenience. Anyway, Enilu was just an ant in his eyes, so he would just kill him. Isn't this the method of cultivating the domineering power of seeing, hearing, and coloring? After spending a while, Luo Shu searched through Enilu's residence and only found a cultivation method called Xianggong. After looking at it carefully, he felt no interest. He said, "This heart is another name for seeing and hearing hockey. Just like Ryu Sakura in Wano country, it is just high-level armed hockey. As long as the armed hockey reaches a high level, you can use it at will. For example, he is now, you can open your hands to the three generals in the original work and release high-level armed domineering during the battle on the top, thereby resisting the power of Whitebeard's shocking fruit. It seems that on the entire Beak Island, the most likely place for the strongest natural devil fruit to appear is in this jungle." Walking out of Anilu's residence, Luo Shu looked at a small jungle not far from the house. Looking at the lush vegetation inside, he felt that if he couldn't find the thunder fruit here, then he might really need to waste some energy. Just do it. Luo Shu has always been like this. Now that he had this idea, he no longer wasted time. After entering the jungle, he was very energetic and started searching like a carpet. Have you heard that? The bully's arm was broken, which was such a relief. Someone should have come forward and punished him long ago. Who says it's not the case? It's best to kill that guy from Enilu, otherwise he will blackmail us even more after he recovers from his injuries. Not long ago, my relatives told me that Enilu had a good relationship with a guard captain on Beak Island, so the guards turned a blind eye to what he did. It is simply abominable. If God knew about this, he would definitely punish them severely. But now, shouldn't we do something and break the bully's other arm while he's injured, so that we don't have to be bullied by him in the future? Let's forget it. Let's not talk about whether the guard captain with whom he has a good relationship will come forward to stop him. Even if Enel does not have an arm, we will not be able to deal with it. At this moment, on the street where Luo Shu had eaten, a large number of shopkeepers were gathering together, chattering about what happened not long ago. They hated Enilu so much that they wished he would lose his life and even give birth to a child. Although they may have the idea of doing it themselves, although it may be hot-headed and excited, it can also be seen from this that they really want Enilu to never be able to be tyrannical on Beak Island from now on. However, if they knew, if Enel was dead, he would probably be so happy that he would not be able to sleep and would laugh for days in a row. There is nothing exaggerated about this. Ha 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 ha, finally found you. The thunder fruit, which is known as the strongest natural type, let me see how much transformation you can bring to me. A few hours later, Luo Shu found a dark blue, grapefruit-shaped fruit on a huge branch, with electric current floating on it from time to time, which made Luo Shu certain that this was definitely the one he had dreamed of. Thunder fruit. Oh, after he took it off, he could no longer control the joy in his heart. After laughing crazily a few times, he took a hard bite on it. Suddenly, a strange smell that could not be expressed in words filled his mouth. If it weren't for he quickly covered his mouth, probably spitting it out directly. Ha 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 ha, gee, crack, crackle. After swallowing the pulp stuck in his throat, he calmed down and used the fruit's ability. Yes, he was able to enter elementalization just after eating it. There was nothing shocking about this. Thunder and lightning enveloped Luo Shu, and the surrounding flowers and trees were burned to a crisp. Yes, don't underestimate the high temperature generated by thunder and lightning, it is very terrifying. Crackle, call out. Luo Shu felt the unknown energy in his body carefully. He stretched out his finger and pointed it at a large tree with a diameter of more than 2 meters. With a thought in his mind, a bolt of lightning flashed out from his fingertips and passed through it in an instant. The big tree was penetrated, leaving only a scorched black hole. Yes, it is indeed the strongest natural devil fruit. If this power is fully developed in the future, it will surpass Kizaru's 8-foot Magatama. I believe it will be no problem. The system opens my panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Host. Luo Shu. Special talents. Copper skin and iron bones, super divine power, natural overlord. Dominance. Intermediate overlord color, advanced armed color, intermediate wisdom color. Physical skills. Advanced. Sword skills. Not beginner. Ability. Natural system, thunder fruit. Comprehensive strength. SS+. Except for the devil fruit appearing behind the ability, nothing else has changed. Looking at his own panel, Luo Shu was not discouraged because his overall strength was still SS+. He knew very well that he had just taken the devil fruit. As long as he developed it, his strength would be as good as eating. Just drink water and improve quickly. He won't be in a hurry either. It's time to leave. I don't know if Drake and Thor are impatient to wait. In this way, Luo Shu frantically studied his newly acquired abilities in the jungle for several hours, and then decided to leave the Sky Island. After all, except for the devil fruit, there are no other people or things here that can let him. He was becoming interested. As for the historical text hidden under the golden clock, Luo Shu was really indifferent to it. First of all, he didn't like to look at history. Secondly, he always wanted to be the person who created history. Sometimes, I really don't understand that O'Hara's incompetent scholars don't know what is called studying the text of history, which is clearly seeking death. The world government clearly has regulations not to study the text of history, but they just go against it. To commit a crime, go and persuade him. There is no need to explain any more. Now O'Hara has long been in ruins. No island can withstand the attack of the Navy's demon-slaying order, including the people on the island, and only Robin just survived. This is also due to Aokiji, a naval admiral with a strong sense of justice. If it were any other navy, Robin would never see the sun the next day. Maybe those scholars have been brainwashed, or it may be that he can abandon everything for the dream in his heart, but Luo Shu thinks this is not worth it. Those illusory things can never be compared with life. If a person dies, then there will be nothing. Aha! Then, Luo Shu pulled out the pair of wings behind him, changed into a suit and a cloak of justice, turned into a bolt of thunder and lightning, and flew away into the distance. His speed was simply astonishing. All thanks to this. For this thundering fruit. These guys are troublesome to carry around. The reward is too low, so just kill them. Drake looked at the several pirates who had been tied up, turned around and said to Thor. It doesn't matter, they're just rubbish anyway. Whether they're killed or sent to Imperial, we can't let them do whatever they want. Thor also doesn't care about this. In his opinion, as long as he is a pirate, he will be punished regardless of whether he is a party to trouble or not. Execute them all, cutting off their heads. In this way, after Drake gave the order, nearly 10 pirates with bounties of millions or even tens of millions of belly went to hell. Including Tsurusama, whom Luffy met on Gaia Island in the original work. Several leaders in the coalition army died tragically in the hands of those naval soldiers. Aha! Just when Drake and others returned to the warship again, a flash of lightning flashed and turned into a figure wearing a cloak of justice, standing on the deck. This person was none other than Luo Shu, who came down from the Sky Island. This, devil fruit ability. Sir, have you become an able person? The first person to react was Thor, the strongest man on the warship. A few drops of cold sweat were seen on his forehead, and he stuttered and asked Luo Shu. Yes, he was indeed shocked just now. After all, Luo Shu's speed was too fast. The moment he appeared again, Thor's domineering power was not caught. If this was an enemy, Thor had no doubt that the opponent could kill him in an instant. Yes, I gained a lot from going to Sky Island this time, and I became an Esper because of it. Luo Shu smiled and nodded, briefly recounted some of his experiences and encounters on Sky Island, and admitted that he was an ability user. Sir, you are not going to eat the thunder fruit, which is known as the strongest natural type, are you? What, thunder fruit? God, sir, you are so lucky. Such a powerful natural system can be obtained by you. I believe that your strength will soon be improved to an unimaginable level, right? Both Thor and Drake were shocked by Luo Shu. Although they don't know how powerful the Thunder Fruit is, the title of the strongest natural system is extremely loud. Just think about it, their parents themselves are very powerful. The strength, coupled with the strongest devil fruit, will be really terrifying in the future. This is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. A powerful devil fruit, even if eaten by a mediocre person, will being able to transform, let alone being eaten by a genius, would definitely be even more powerful. Ha 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 ha, there is nothing shocking. Our luck has indeed improved. We can now head towards Marineland. As long as we destroy a few pirate groups, everyone can be promoted. Luo Shu smiled slightly proudly. He was in a good mood now. When he returned to the Navy headquarters and revealed that he had become a Thunder Fruit user, he didn't know what kind of expressions the senior officials would show, especially with him. Will Garp, who has a somewhat tense relationship, grit his teeth over this? Yes, sir. As the saying goes, when one person attains enlightenment, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. This time, my parents got such a terrifying opportunity. As his subordinates, I was naturally happy for him, so the two of them saluted Luo Shu together and said in unison. Second, early in the morning, Luo Shu sat cross-legged on the deck. His upper body was naked, and blue arcs of electricity were running wildly on his skin. This was the method he thought of last night, even though he had the talent of copper skin and iron bones, but he was still not satisfied with his physical strength. Luo Shu wanted to use thunder and lightning to polish his body from the inside out, so that no one could break his defense even if he faced siege in the future. Only then could he say, really is invincible in the world. Although the results of this method are hard to see, he believes that as long as he persists and takes time to practice this kind of practice every day, with the blessing of years and months, the improvement will definitely be great. Also, one thing is that he decided to imitate Enel in the original work and merge the radio wave ability of the Thunder Fruit with his own haki of seeing and hearing, allowing him to perceive a farther range and hear the voices of others. These are currently with the basic ability of the Thunder Fruit. As long as he spends some more time, he can develop more abilities that Enel did not master in the original work. This devil fruit, known as the strongest natural type, is not as light as it can produce thunder and lightning. Simple. And because of Luo Shu's hard work, Thor and Drake were also inspired. The two people discovered that Luo Shu had entered a state of cultivation early in the morning. They also practiced domineering and physical fitness on the warship. They don't want to be left too far behind by Luo Shu, otherwise they may not be qualified to be his subordinates. After all, as the confidants of the strong, they cannot be useless. At least they must be on the stage and can handle some troubles for them. Time passed quickly, and another week passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Luo Shu's warships kept wandering on the Grand Route, and at the same time wiped out 2 unlucky pirate groups, but the bounty was only worth tens of millions of dollars. It can be said to be a garbage-like existence. At noon that day, Luo Shu, who was eating, suddenly stopped what he was doing, and his eyes became a little playful. Full speed, southeast. That's right, now he has a very wide coverage area with the hegemonic power of seeing and hearing. Although the sea he can see is very calm, he senses what is happening more than 10 sea miles away, so he immediately issues an order. This makes the sitting person Drake and Thor, who were eating at the same table, felt confused. They looked around and found nothing. After using the haki to sense it, they still found nothing. In the end, they could only sigh to themselves. My level of knowledge and domineering is not enough. Mom said, I'm going to kill all of you guys and get the treasure on your ship. Go to hell. On the other side, there was a fat young man with blonde hair and a crescent-shaped beard. He had long scars on his face, neck, and head. He looked very fierce. He stood on the bow of a pirate ship, holding he wielded his naginata, roared to himself, and rushed towards the frightened pirates. Not far from the pirate ship, a simple boat parked there, with an appearance standing on it. The ugly, short old woman was smiling and looking at this scene with evil eyes. These two people can be regarded as a strange combination in the world of One Piece. They have a mother-son relationship, but the son is stupid and the mother has been using her son crazily. Fortunately, Edward Weeble is powerful, otherwise the mother and son would have been together long ago. He'll be buried in the sea. What kind of monster is this? Our guns can't hurt it when we hit it. He can't be weird, he is a devil fruit user, he can defend against our attacks. The captain was killed by him, let's jump into the sea and escape. Otherwise it will be too late. That's right, we are no match for him, run away. Some pirates who were more afraid of death couldn't help but want to retreat after they found that they could not hurt the tall monster in front of them even if they fired black guns. At the same time, their own captain was killed by the opponent's knife. What's more, the only way to determine the outcome of this war is to drop the weapon and jump into the sea. Although if you do this, you will probably drown or become food for sea monsters, but in the end it is better than being cut in half directly. On a lot. As expected of my son, awesome. Go collect the money on this pirate ship. It's time for us to leave. In less than 2 minutes, the entire pirate group had been completely disintegrated by Edward Weeble. Upon seeing this, Miss Ba Jin drove the boat under her feet to get close. After boarding the pirate ship, she tapped her son with a cane, feet, and at the same time complimented the other party a few words. Hey, okay, my dear mother. An enemy is coming. Weeble giggled twice, replied honestly, then twisted his fat body and walked towards the cabin. But at this moment, he suddenly stopped and looked at the sea in the distance. The originally smiling face became serious. It was obvious that his domineering aura captured Luo Shu's warship. At the same time, he also sensed Luo Shu's unconcealed aura of a strong man. Although he looked stupid, although he has a strong brain, it does not mean that he is a complete retard. On the contrary, he is surprisingly strong in terms of experience against enemies and combat consciousness. Otherwise, he would not have such strength in his 20s. Oh, did you spot me? Very good insight into the domineering color. Although his strength at this time is not at its peak, he is no longer weak. According to the plot of the original work, next year will be the time for him to cut off Zepha's arm. On the other side, Luo Shu, who was standing on the deck, raised his eyebrows. Just now, he sensed that Weeble was ready in full force, as if facing a formidable enemy. How could he not guess this situation? The other party discovered that he was coming. As Weeble, who was able to cut off Zepha's arm in the original work, it goes without saying whether he used a conspiracy or a small trick. At least, with his own strength, even if Zepha the law is weak, but not too weak. It turns out to be a brat from the Navy. Son, kill him, he is the youngest colonel in the history of the Navy, if you take his head off, you will become famous. A few minutes later, Miss Ba Jin put down the telescope in his hand and said to his son standing next to her. Yes, she recognized Luo Shu's identity. It should be the newspaper she had seen promoting Luo Shu before. There's nothing surprising about this. Okay, Mom. Although he is very strong, I will definitely kill him. Weeble nodded heavily, his eyes filled with strong killing intent. The fighting spirit in his heart has climbed to the top. This also comes from the fact that there is violence in his blood, and he has not met for a long time. I've been there before, it's better than a master like Luo Shu. System. Open Weeble's panel. Ding. The panel is opening. Name. Edward Weeble. Special talents. Thick skin and flesh, advanced brute strength. Dominance. Advanced armed color, advanced knowledge color. Physical skills. Advanced. Swordsmanship. Advanced swordsman. Ability. Superman type, impact fruit unawakened. Comprehensive strength. SSS. A very good opponent. Who would have thought that this stupid guy actually has 2 special talents? Although the level is not very high, he really can't be underestimated. The distance between the 2 ships is getting closer and closer. Luo Shu checked Weeble's panel through the system. He couldn't help but feel surprised. Once again, it confirmed a sentence. There are only a few people who can become strong at a young age. He has no special talent. He even has some doubts that this Weeble may really be Whitebeard's biological son. In the past, he more or less thought that Whitebeard should not have such a stupid son, but now he sees the other parties after considering the talent and strength. It was really hard for him to imagine that a person with no background and whose parents were just ordinary people would possess such a talent. The chance of this was probably dozens of times more difficult than awakening the Overlord domineering energy. Let me sink into the sea. Ah! Before Luo Shu's warship could continue to approach, Weeble suddenly shouted loudly, and a silver-white halo appeared in his right hand, hitting Luo Shu's position fiercely. A huge shock wave ran rampant on the sea. At the same time, a wave of more than 10 meters high was set off, trying to crush Luo Shu's warship with a devastating force. Even though the Navy on the warship were all elites of the headquarters, after seeing this scene, they couldn't help but feel sad in their hearts. Fear, but they did not show it, but focused their attention on Luo Shu. They believed that this legendary colonel in the Navy would definitely block the attack. Even Drake and Thor the same is true. In the face of this kind of attack, if the two of them step forward to resist, they may be blasted directly into the sea. This is no joke. If a person with abilities falls into the sea, the mortality rate is extremely high. If the other party beats up the drowned dog, if they attack again, they will definitely die. Don't even think about it. Lan Zhao, Chaos Blade. Fortunately, Luo Shu did not disappoint everyone. He slightly arched his body, suddenly jumped into the air, flew his feet, and kicked out several cyan slashes. There was no way. He had only been able to become an ability user for too short a time, and many of his moves were still useless. It has not been developed yet, so it is okay to use it to deal with rookies. If it encounters a strong person like Weeble, it will be of no use at all. So he can only use physical skills to fight against the enemy. But fortunately, in the past few days, combined with the fruit ability, his domineering power of knowledge and color has reached a high level, and his overall strength has also been improved to the same level as Weeble, both of which are SSS. As expected of Colonel Luo Shu, that terrifying shock wave was cut open. We are safe. With Colonel Luo Shu here, there is no need to be afraid. The pirates cannot win. Speaking of which, Colonel Luo Shu's physical skills are so powerful. It can actually compete with the fruit's ability. In this life, I only need 1/10 of Colonel Luo Shu's strength. That is definitely Guangzong Yaozu. Quote. After Luo Shu used his land kick to cut off the shock wave sent by Weeble, a group of Marines immediately roared with astonishing force. At the same time, they transformed into Luo Shu's little fanboys, and all kinds of words of praise were heard. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, Luo Shu won by his own strength. He can afford those evaluations. That Navy guy is so strong. It seems that Weeble may not be able to take him down in a short time. If the other party's men attack me unexpectedly, it will be dangerous. Miss Ba Jin, who had been standing behind Weeble, frowned. Although she has no strength now, after all, she was also on Locke's ship when she was young. However, his vision is naturally very high, and he can see that Luo Shu's strength is no worse than Weeble. This had to make her cautious, so she made a small calculation in her mind. As a person who can raise Weeble by herself and do all the evil things, she certainly has a very smart mind. Not only does she love money, she also has various escaping skills. Moreover, she is not without any strength. Even though she has declined a lot due to laziness over the years, she is still not something that ordinary people can compete with. Super chop. On the other hand, Weeble, after discovering that his attack was easily neutralized by the opponent, he immediately became furious. He raised the naginata in his hand and created a more powerful shock wave, causing the surrounding air to be torn apart instantly and the sky to be colored. Suddenly, the wind began to howl, and the waves on the sea came one after another, seemingly endless. Overlord Fist Death. Luo Shu, who was standing in midair, glanced at the shock wave coming towards him. In fact, he could use the 6 styles or the Thunder Fruit ability to avoid it, but the warship behind him would suffer from it. He knowing that his 2 men could not block Weeble's attack at all. In the end, he could only use the physical skills that he had developed in 2 years. His right arm suddenly bulged, and the sleeves of his suit were so stretched that they burst open. He wrapped his fist around the high-level armed color hockey and struck hard at the shock wave. This punch was not only mixed with his terrifying power, but also the high-level armed color hockey and the energy he exuded. The Overlord color is domineering, and the characteristic of its moves is that it can defeat 10 levels with 1 force. Boom! The 2 attacks collided, emitting a violent explosion. The sea water rose up to a height of dozens of meters. It was overwhelming and isolated the sight of the 2 people. This shows how terrifying the aftermath of the battle was. If a weak person stands among them, death will be inevitable. Son, Quickly attack the sea. It's time for us to leave. At this time, Miss Ba Jin immediately stepped on Weible's feet and told her that this was not over yet. She even ran directly into the cabin, with the purpose of trying to escape by sailing. This time she didn't want Weeble to continue fighting, otherwise the outcome would be unpredictable. If he accidentally took his life, it would be more than worth the loss. In the end, Weeble once again activated his Devil Fruit ability and hit the front of the pirate ship. On the sea surface, the waves that caused the sea to rebound pushed the pirate ship far away. With the help of Miss Ba Jin's driving skills, it disappeared from the sight of Luo Shu and others in an instant. You're really cautious. It's interesting. I'll let you go this time. Next time. Luo Shu jumped back to the deck of the warship and stood there with his arms folded, a sneer hanging from the corner of his mouth. He knew that Miss Ba Jin would definitely run away when he saw the situation was not going well. It was not that he could not catch up with him, but it's not necessary. It is not difficult to subdue a stupid person like Weeble, so Luo Shu does not want to give up this kind of talent, but now, his voice in the Navy is very low, and he is not qualified to let someone with such a talent. If a pirate with a bounty on his head joins the Navy, it will not only affect his career, but will also cause trouble for him, which is not in line with his interests. So this time he let him go just to catch the big fish in the long run, and let the monster Edward Weeble practice for a few more years. Then he can harvest more abundant fruits. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Congratulations, sir, for defeating a powerful enemy. Colonel Luo Shu is mighty. Colonel Luo Shu is invincible. Soon, Drake, Thor and other Marines saluted Luo Shu in unison and said. Although this battle did not last too long and did not really determine the winner, it made them it is enough to witness a battle belonging to the strong. I don't know how many people will never have the opportunity to see such a battle scene in their lives. Sir, that guy's beard looks very similar to Whitebeard. They can't be related, right? After a while, after the warship returned to its previous route, Drake, who was very imaginative, suddenly asked Luo Shu. He had seen many photos of Whitebeard, the most powerful man in the world, in newspapers. So I came up with an idea that sounds very illusory, but if you think about it carefully, it is very convincing. Quote, quote. However, Thor was speechless about this. Of course he knew about Whitebeard and had seen his photo, but he didn't think that Weeble would have anything to do with him. There were too many people with the same beard. It seems that there is nothing strange about this. Who knows, maybe they are father and son. But that doesn't matter, the important thing is that he will never reach the level of Whitebeard. Luo Shu shook his head. He was not sure about this. Although he thought that Weeble was very likely to be Whitebeard's son, he would not give Derek a definite answer. But there was one thing. He didn't feel that what I would say is wrong, that is, Weeble can never surpass Whitebeard. No, even if he is not qualified for comparison, the former is much better than Weeble in terms of strength, brains, or personality charm. After Weeble's episode, Luo Shu once again wiped out several pirate groups on his way back to Marinefando, but he was still the kind of Exabe guy with no reputation. On this day, it was exactly 2 months since Luo Shu left the Navy headquarters. He finally returned to Marineland. Looking at a large number of Navy standing at the port, he knew that they were all there to welcome him. First of all, the most conspicuous person is Zepha, followed by the ghost spider behind the opponent, Daubman, and several lieutenant generals and major generals of the headquarters. The scene was so grand that the naval soldiers gathered in the distance began a series of comments. However, most of them were praising Luo Shu's achievements. They all knew that Luo Shu had been away for 2 months and wiped out many pirates. 4 of them had a bounty of 100 million belly. This made them admire them. Endless. Teacher Zepha. Luo Shu jumped off the warship, came to Zepha's side, and saluted him. Good, good, good. Here are the letters of appointment and badges for your 2 subordinates. They are now captains of the Navy headquarters. As for your appointment, it will be postponed to 3 days, and you will definitely be satisfied by then. Zephalion said 3 good words, which shows how satisfied he is with this disciple. However, he did not forget to take out 2 documents and 2 badges and put them into Luo Shu's hands. These were specially entrusted to him by the Warring States period. His mission. After all, as the Marshal of the Navy headquarters, he cannot come to the port in person to greet Luo Shu, the Colonel of the Navy headquarters. That would really lose his identity. Go back and clean up first. Then go to the marshal's office and report to Warring States face to face on the situation of this patrol. Looking at the naval generals who surrounded Luo Shu and wildly praised each other, Zepha immediately spoke up to help Luo Shu. Thank you very much. If I can take time out of my busy schedule to welcome you, I will definitely pay you a visit one day. Luo Shu said something to everyone with a smile, and then left with Thor and Drake. In fact, he quite liked the feeling of being praised to the sky by everyone. Maybe it was vanity, or maybe it was because of his vanity. After you have a certain level of strength, you want to be recognized by others. Even if the other person is pretending, those words will definitely make them happy. Here are your letters of appointment, as well as the badge representing the colonel of our headquarters. Drake, get Thor familiar with Malinfando as soon as possible, and don't cause any embarrassment then. Back at his mansion, Luo Shu personally handed the letters of appointment into the hands of Drake and Thor, and put badges on them, not forgetting to give some instructions to Drake. After all, it was Thor's first time to come to the Navy headquarters. There must be a lot of unfamiliar places. If Derek can give guidance, I believe it won't be long before the other party can completely integrate into this Navy base camp. And he took a rest and tasted the food prepared by the chef. He put on a brand new black suit, put on the cloak of justice, and walked to the marshal's office. Buckle, come in. He is worthy of being the strongest genius in our Navy. In just 2 months, he has achieved achievements that ordinary naval generals may not be able to achieve in a year. 20 minutes later, in the Navy headquarters, in the marshal's office, Warring States sat in the main seat and teased Luo Shu with a smile. Marshal of the Warring States period received the award, but it was just good luck. But it is indeed much better than some guys who earn high wages every year but never contribute much. Luo Shu said humbly at first, then changed the topic and mentioned some officials in the Navy headquarters who had no ability and relied solely on time to get to the general level. He was very disdainful of such people. Even if guys like Kizaru who live just to get by are much better than those losers. If a war breaks out, Kizaru can be on the front line, regardless of whether he will attack with all his strength, at least his strength is there. Even if they drag, they can still hold back a strong man of the same level as him, but those guys without strength will almost always end up being killed instantly as long as they go to the battlefield, and they can't even beat people weaker than them. Because in their hearts, it has been corroded, and the fighting consciousness has been forgotten somewhere. When a battle occurs, the first thing to think about is how to save one's life. I also hate the kind of people you talk about, but no matter how unbearable they are, it's not your turn to make irresponsible remarks, right? You are just a colonel at the Navy headquarters now, but you dare to talk about general-level officials. Where do you put military discipline? Before Warring States could say anything, Garp, who was sitting on the sofa, didn't know why he was so crazy. He stared at Luo Shu with his eyes wide open and yelled loudly, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't hear. In fact, in the past few days when Luo Shu was about to arrive at the Navy headquarters, most of the Navy were talking about how powerful Luo Shu was and how many pirates he had destroyed. Of course, such words would reach Garp's ears. He had strange thoughts towards Luo Shu and always believed that the other party was an unstable factor, so an evil fire was always running around in his body. Now that he saw the high-spirited Luo Shu, he couldn't control the anger in his heart. Boom. Garp, shut up. Speaking of military discipline, when have you ever taken it seriously in so many years? No one in the entire Navy headquarters is qualified to speak to Luo Shu, but you are the only one who doesn't. As soon as Garp finished speaking, Warring States suddenly stood up, slapped his palms heavily on the desk, and yelled at Garp. However, deep down in his heart, he was bitter. On one side he was an old friend who had been with him for many years, and on the other he is the leader of the new generation of the Navy, and this top genius has fully grown up, but he is not a good choice. But just now, Garp clearly used Luo Shu as a punching bag and forced him to accuse the other party. He was afraid that if he did not come forward, stop it, both of them are likely to fight in his marshal's office. He knows very well who Garp is. If he acts recklessly, he won't care about who is around him or what situation he is in. He won't do anything if he says it. Any hesitation. As for Luo Shu, He is a person who never wants to suffer losses, and he will not give in to people with whom he has a mediocre relationship. Coupled with his pride as a genius, how can he be tolerant to Garp? Therefore, what the Warring States period did was a last resort. Warring States. Garp, who was stunned by Sang Guo's sudden yell, pointed at Sang Guo, but in the end he did not refute the other party's words. If he thought about it carefully, he really had never taken military discipline seriously. Just now he scolded Luo Shu, it was just a sudden whim, just looking for a random reason, without thinking about myself at all. For a moment, his anger became suppressed. Garp touched the back of his head, with a somewhat embarrassed smile on his face, sat down again, and began to say nothing. No matter how impulsive he is, facing this situation, he thinks it's better not to say anything. The provincial warring statesman was saying something to him. However, he did not forget to think about how to interfere with Luo Shu's promotion or expose his true nature so that he would not be recognized by others in the Navy. Luo Shu, don't mind. That's just the way Garp is. He may have taken the wrong medicine when he went out today and spoke impulsively. Marshal of the Warring States period, you don't have to be like this. I don't dare to bear a grudge against Lieutenant General Garp. After all, he is a naval hero and extremely powerful. He once chased the pirate King Galdi. Roger all over the world, which is really admirable. But what scares me the most is the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Monkey D. If the other party knows that I have offended his father, he may lead the rebels to besiege me when I am on a mission. Wouldn't I be in danger then? Seeing Garp behave like this, Warring States breathed a sigh of relief and quickly spoke to comfort Luo Shu. But before he could finish his words, Luo Shu interrupted him. Luo Shu was seen crossing his arms and looking at him strangely. Garp, with the corners of his mouth raised slightly, said it very playfully. Especially when he mentioned the Revolutionary Army at the end, his voice became very serious, but there was no trace of fear on his face. It was obvious that he said this on purpose. This is what disgusts Garp. Who let the other party affect his mood first? Do you really think that he, Luo Shu, is a fool? Just because you, Garp, can scold him, but he has to pretend not to hear. Sorry, then impossible. Luo Shu's revenge is stronger than anyone else, and he is the most unwilling to suffer. Now that he has gained such great strength, he will not allow anyone to dominate him. Dare to make him unhappy. Everyone has to pay the price, it's just a matter of sooner or later. Call. Bang, bang, bang. Garp slowly stood up from the sofa. His face was red, his fists were turning white, and he was making a series of noises. His eyes were wide open, which all showed how angry he was now. Luo Shu's words could be said to have touched his bottom line. In the entire Navy headquarters, except for Sengoku and he, who occasionally mentioned Monkey D. Dragon, even the three generals would not mention it in front of him. This son has always been a pain point and a taboo for him. He had put so much effort into him at the beginning, but in the end, he was completely disappointed. Like the three generals, Monkey D. Dragon showed great talent after entering the Naval Academy. Not long after the pirate King Galdi Roger was executed, he betrayed the Navy and established a revolutionary army, openly confronting the Navy and the world government, overthrowing the regimes of other countries everywhere, and was known as the most vicious criminal in the world. If it weren't for Garp's great strength, his achievements for the Navy, which no one can question, and his deep support from the bottom and mid-level forces of the Navy, he would have been forcibly charged by the world government and imprisoned in the Imperial Undersea Continent. Prison, or even a rat-throwing weapon, publicly executed Garp, thus allowing the Revolutionary Army to surface and take the initiative to die. Kid, I'll give you a chance to reorganize your language and say what you just said again. We will stop updating novels on this site, move to our new site, Web Links. Garp slowly came to Luo Shu, carrying a strong aura, and said to Luo Shu word by word. He has tried his best to restrain himself now, as long as Luo Shu relents and apologizes to him, so for the sake of Warring States, Zepha and others, he could pretend he didn't hear what he said before, but if the other party dared to say anything to irritate him again, then he would take action against Luo Shu without hesitation. Card. Oh, didn't you hear what I said before? Let me say it again. You, the guy who allowed his son to become a revolutionary soldier, do not deserve to be called a naval hero. Luo Shu interrupted Warring States again. Facing Garp, who was much taller than him, he spoke directly. It could be said that he showed all the words he wanted to express deep in his heart. At this moment, he in the marshal's office, Shui Warring States, Qing Pheasant, he, including Garp himself, all looked extremely dull. How could they have thought that Luo Shu would say such hurtful words, and he meant every word to hurt his heart, even though it was very painful. It makes sense, but who dares to really say it? Today, let me teach you a lesson for Zepha. Not just any words can be said. Otherwise, you will pay a heavy price. Soon, Garp, who had regained his composure, had a terrifyingly gloomy look on his face, and his whole face had become distorted. It could be seen that his heart was now filled with anger. He first said something to Luo Shu, then clenched his fist with his right hand, and instantly raised his hand to Luo Shu. Luo Shu hit Luo Shu on the chest. Although this punch did not cover his top-level armed domineering force, he used 80% of his strength. With Garp's strength and the special talent of super punch power, this attack was enough to hit Luo Shu. Break a mountain. Boom. Elementalize. You actually ate a natural devil fruit. But just after the fist hit Luo Shu's body, it passed through the body strangely, and the fist-shaped shock wave shattered the other wall of the marshal's office. But Garp couldn't help but exclaimed, yes, he was careless again. Luo Shu only left the Navy headquarters for 2 months and actually became a natural fruit ability user. Get out of here. Boom. Luo Shu, who maintained his elemental form, was well prepared. His body turned into a bolt of lightning, flashed to Garp's side, and punched the opponent's ribs. He didn't wrap his armed hockey, but used 10. The strength was so strong, because he sensed that Garp had already reacted, and used iron blocks and top-level weaponry to harden his body with domineering force. No matter how powerful his punch was, it was impossible to kill Garp, and even the opponent could not and may not be able to hurt you. But it is enough to knock it away. Whoosh. Sure enough, Garp, who was hit by Luo Shu's punch, smashed a wall of the marshal's office like a kite with a broken string, and flew backwards crazily. Chapter 31. Luo Shu didn't stop just because he knocked Garp away. Instead, he took advantage of the victory and pursued him. His speed was a few minutes faster than before. He had already thought about it. Since he was already messing around, he would hit him all at once. This is also good for him. He can fight against the world's top players at close range. Not everyone is qualified to enjoy such an opportunity. It's a natural thunder fruit. I didn't expect that boy Luo Shu was so lucky. I just went to the first half of the grand route, and I got such an opportunity. He came to the broken wall, looked at Luo Shu who was fighting with Garp, and said with a very surprised face. Even Drake and Thor knew that the existence of the thunder fruit was even more important. Needless to say, he is the chief staff officer of the Navy headquarters with rich experience and extensive experience. Even though this devil fruit has not appeared on the sea for decades, its famous name has made the top brass of the major forces change their expressions upon hearing it. Because every natural type thunder fruit ability user is not a waste, and they have all achieved great fame. Enel in the original work may be the worst one. Known as the strongest natural devil fruit, I have to admit that sometimes luck is also a kind of strength. This matter needs to be reported to the 5 old stars. Maybe it won't be long before the Navy will add a 4th general. Warring States standing aside, squinting his eyes slightly, staring at Luo Shu with the electric light flashing on his body, and said in a deep voice at the same time. In his opinion, Luo Shu has obtained this devil fruit, which also means that the other party it is truly comparable to the strongest group of people in the Navy. If he was a little worried before that Luo Shu's future promotion would not be that simple, then now, he does not need to think about this issue at all. He believed that after this matter was reported to Wulaoxing, the other party would definitely pay more attention to Luo Shu, so that he could rise to the top. No one could stop Luo Shu's promotion of military rank, including him, the Marshal of the Navy headquarters. Mr. Sengoku, Granny Crane, maybe we should stop the fight between the two of them first. If the fight continues, the entire Marineland will be in danger. Feeling the ground trembling slightly under his feet, Aoki said helplessly that although he respected Garp very much and listened to his words, it did not mean that he would shamelessly go to help Garp, otherwise, he would lose face. It's too big, so I can only choose to separate the two of them to resolve this unnecessary battle. Look, it's Lieutenant General Garp and Colonel Luo Shu. Why are they fighting? And it looks like it will become really popular soon. It's so powerful. I, a lieutenant general, can actually feel fear. Is this the aura that a strong man exudes when he fights? It seems that my bet is right. Colonel Luo Shu is so young that he can be inseparable from Lieutenant General Garp. In a few years, wouldn't he be the new admiral of the Navy headquarters? Hey, I said, what on earth are you thinking? Didn't you realize that Colonel Luo Shu ate the devil fruit and became an esper? Moreover, seeing that he was wrapped with lightning and was so fast, he was probably the strongest natural type, the thunder fruit ability. He was already incredibly gifted and incredibly powerful, and now that he has gained this ability, Colonel Luo Shu is so lucky. With the help of this devil fruit, wouldn't he be even more powerful? Due to the fight between the two, a large number of naval generals were attracted. They stood far away, for fear of being affected by the battle, and talked in private at the same time. As for the lower-level navy, they stood further away, but in order to see it became clearer. They climbed to a high place just to see the battle of such strong men. I don't believe I can't take you down, little brat. Fist bone iron fist. Garp, who had found the right opportunity, jumped into the air, and condensed the top-level armed domineering energy with his right fist, and hit Luo Shu fiercely. This attack, even if Luo Shu is elementalized, will definitely be injured if he is hit. Don't think I'm afraid of you, an old immortal. Ba fist. Death kill. Luo Shu roared angrily, the muscles of his right arm bulged instantly, and even his fist became inexplicably bigger. The opponent's timing was very accurate, and he had no choice but to fight head-on. Of course, he also likes this kind of physical attack. Buddha's shock wave. Just when the fists of the two people were about to collide, a golden flash appeared, and the Warring States period transformed into the form of a giant Buddha. A pair of golden palms fell from the sky, carrying an extremely terrifying shock wave, and hit the middle of the two people, forcing Kapu and Luo Shu frantically took dozens of steps back before they could stop. Boom! But in this open space, there was a large crater with a diameter of several hundred meters. The giant island supporting Marina Fando trembled. This shows how powerful the attack of the three people was. It was the Warring States Marshal who took action. It's a pity. If the Marshal had taken action a little later, Lieutenant General Garp and Colonel Luo Shu might have been able to decide the winner. Although Colonel Luo Shu is very strong, his armament, domineering and physical skills are much weaker than Lieutenant General Garp, but he has the ability of the Thunder Fruit. If we really want to decide the winner, I am afraid it will take a long time. It is normal for the Warring States Marshal to take action. If the fight continues, it will affect the lower-level Navy or the family members of the Navy living in Marineland. Then the gains will outweigh the losses. That's right too. Everyone watching the battle felt bored after seeing Sengoku stop Garp and Luo Shu, but they also understood the reason, so they left quickly without waiting for him to say anything, pretending not to see anything. To the point. Don't stop yet. Isn't it embarrassing to fight together in public? Everyone should go back to their own homes and reflect. Sengoku, who had released the form of the Buddha, shouted loudly to Luo Shu and Garp with a dark face. He was about to explode with anger from these two people. However, since he learned that Luo Shu had become a user with the Thunder Fruit ability, he felt happy. Just didn't show it. I hope I don't meet Monkey D. Dragon on the sea. Otherwise, I will definitely send him to hell with my own hands. In this way, Luo Shu and Garp glared at each other for a few times, then turned and left. However, Luo Shu had an idea in his mind, that is, he wanted to end the Revolutionary Army with his own hands and kill those rats hiding in the darkness. Pull them out, then peel off the skin and cause cramps. Sir, are you okay? Do you want us to do something? Thorin Drake, who had already been waiting in front of Luo Shu's residence, immediately stepped forward and asked after discovering the familiar figure. As Luo Shu's subordinates, they knew that their parents were shocked to death after the battle with Garp, but they knew that that kind of battle was not something they could intervene in. At least they don't have that strength now. No, you just need to improve your strength quickly. You don't need to worry about the rest. That old immortal Garp will have plenty of opportunities to take revenge on him in the future. There's no rush in this matter. Luo Shu shook his head gently. He didn't want his two men to interfere in this matter for no reason, and he already had some plans, but it would take some time to implement them. Let Garp be proud first, and later let him walk around without being able to eat. Yes, sir. However, you were able to fight Garp without being at a disadvantage. I believe many generals have been impressed by your strength. The two of them saluted together to show that they understood Luo Shu's words. Then Derek came close to Luo Shu and spoke flatteringly. His words were full of admiration and praise for Luo Shu. This is a typical flattery on his part. Although it seems that I have not lost the battle with the old guy, in fact there is still a big gap between me and him. Don't underestimate Garp. As someone who was able to defeat Rox and chase the pirate king Gall D. Roger, traveling all over the world, there is no doubt about his strength. Anyone who dares to underestimate him will not end well. Okay, you can leave, I'm going to rest too. Luo Shu waved his hand and signaled Derek to stop saying such beautiful words. Although he liked to hear it in his heart, he could accept the reality. Yes, in the previous battle, he seemed to be able to do it with ease, but in fact it was very difficult. He even said that he couldn't let go. If warring states hadn't descended from the sky in the end and forced the two of them to separate, he wouldn't have had much confidence that he would be able to take Garp's punch. But even if he really punched Garp, he would have been beaten at most. It's just repelled, and he won't suffer any serious injuries. But it's enough to determine the winner. Of course, if it's a sparring match, then Luo Shu has already lost. If it's a matter of life and death, he is confident that he can win from Garp. Escaped unscathed, even if he was facing Garp, who was in full mad dog mode, there was nothing the other party could do to him. Just like that, he left his words and walked into his mansion. He wanted to digest this battle. The income they gained could make up for some of their shortcomings in time. Thor and Drake looked at each other and left here together. Anyway, their parents had no instructions, and the other party was not injured in the battle. They really had nothing to care about. On the other side, at Garp's residence, Garp, who had just participated in the war, was sitting on the sofa, holding a cup of tea with a calm face, looking very old, and there was no trace of the fact that he had experienced combat before. Mr. Garp, you really made an unwise choice to fight Luo Shu this time. Many low-level navy and some generals saw your battle, although most of them thought that if the battle continued, they would eventually win a certain amount of money. It's you, but still a small number of people, who were shocked by Luo Shu's strength. This actually gave that guy a lot of reputation in the headquarters. Aokiji, who was sitting opposite Garp, held an eye mask for sleeping in his hand and said without saying a word. He has always been on Garp's side, whether it was because he was taught by him when he was young or because of the situation he was in. It is impossible for any faction to leave Garp's support. The Warring States period should have reported the matter of Luo Shu becoming a natural thunder fruit user to the 5 old stars. It seems that we will have no chance to interfere with that brat's promotion in the future. Although I hate that kid very much, I have to admit his talent and strength. This time he fought with me and almost never used the ability of the thunder fruit. It seems that he just obtained it not long ago and has not had time to develop the fruit. Sigh, luck is really a kind of strength. After Luo Shu gets this devil fruit, it's unknown what level of strength he will reach in the future. Moreover, Akainu seems to care about Luo Shu very much, letting Ghost Spider, Daubman and others come into contact with him more than once. They are really stupid. How could a possessor of domineering power be subordinated to others? Regardless of his decisiveness in killing pirates, in fact, there is no justice in his heart. Akainu intends to win over him, but in the end he is afraid that he will be regarded as a stepping stone. Besides, Luo Shu's little brat has such huge hidden ambitions that it makes me feel a bit like the golden lion Shiji back then. Garp drank all the tea in the cup, closed his eyes slightly, and spoke word by word. His voice was very low, and he seemed to have fallen into memories in the end. He was thinking about why he was targeting Luo Shu. In the end, he concluded that the other party did not want to be a navy at all, but used the navy as a stepping stone to realize his hidden ambitions. Yes, he did see Luo Shu very thoroughly, so Garp had to do his best to go against Luo Shu. He didn't want the navy he had spent decades defending to deteriorate and even lose its original role due to Luo Shu's existence. Don't be gloomy, Ching Pheasant. You have to know that Luo Shu, that brat, wants to become an admiral of the Navy headquarters. Even if he is favored by the 5 old stars, it will be quite difficult. Today's Navy is not what it was a few decades ago. The 3 generals are at their peak, and the Warring States period has not become obsolete. In addition, Zepha, the generals are supplemented by Tatu, Chado, and a group of veteran lieutenant generals from the Navy headquarters, and a large number of admirals. To obtain the position of general, at least half of the people must support him, and he must achieve comparable achievements. Therefore, as long as the Doves alienate him and the neutrals do not take him seriously, relying solely on the support of the Hawks, it will take at least more than 10 years for him to become the admiral of the Navy headquarters, unless he can obtain the achievements beyond imagination, such as destroying the Emperor of the New World, but this kind of thing can only be thought of. It cannot be done with the power of one person. Looking at Aoki, who was silent and frowning, Garp was very calm and told some of the things he analyzed. He is a veteran who has worked in the Navy for decades. Even if he is usually careless, he is still very careful. He knew the Navy's mechanism very well, so after thinking about it carefully, he was not so anxious. Moreover, what Garp said is indeed very reasonable. Admiral of the Navy headquarters, the position that represents the strongest combat power of the Navy, cannot be held by everyone. Even in the original work, after the war, Dao, who is the admiral's backup, the Rabbit and the T-Dolphin still haven't been promoted. Instead, 2 strong men were recruited from the world conscription to fill the missing general positions, namely Fujitora and Midori. But Garp didn't know that the world would have to go in the future. If nothing unexpected happened, even if Luo Shu did nothing and had been silently improving his strength in his headquarters, waiting for the war to come, he would definitely ascend to the position of general. Not to mention, Luo Shu also had his own plans. How could he be willing to wait many years before being promoted to general? If that's the case, what does Mr. Garp need me to do? Ching Pheasant heard that Garp had nothing to say, so he asked humbly. Put away your lazy personality and complete more of the tasks assigned by the headquarters. Whether you have a chance to be the next Marshal of the Navy headquarters depends on your own efforts. Garp looked directly at Aokihiko and said in an unquestionable voice. Although there are many pirates living in this world, there are also very few with high bounties. As long as Aokihiko can eradicate more, he will be able to get rid of them from another place. On the other hand, it will limit Luo Shu's achievements, and he can accumulate more, paving the way for the other party to become the next Marshal of the Navy headquarters. This can be said to be a double win. In the past, Aokiji's biggest opponent was Akainu, but since Luo Shu stood out, Garp felt that Aokiji should consider changing his opponent. At the same time, in a tall and splendid building located at the top of the Red Continent, in the Holy Land of Mariajoya, 5 richly dressed old people were sitting together, each busy. Even though they look very old, each of them has the aura of a strong person. They have been in high positions for many years, and the majesty they exude in every move is something that not even Marshal Sengoku of the Navy headquarters can compare with. Compare. You have all heard what Warring States just reported. The Navy brat named Luo Shu, after returning from the first half of the Grand Route, actually got the Thunder Fruit, which has the title of the strongest natural system. And he has already taken it. It seems that it won't be long before the Navy will have another strong man comparable to a general. Wu Laoxing, who was dressed in a black suit, had silver-white curly hair, wore a flat hat, and had a scar on the left side of his face. He was leaning on a cane and said in a calm voice. Even when discussing the Thunder Fruit, he seemed extremely indifferent. Didn't show any strange expression. The kid's strength is astonishing. He was able to fight Garp at the age of 17. Even in the world government, there has never been a person with such an astonishing talent. The country has prepared to promote him to the rank of Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, and his strength is enough for him. As for his achievements, he also killed many pirates in the first half of the Grand Route this time. Even if there are people in the Navy who have other ideas about this, there is nothing they can do. The bearded 5-old star said in a deep voice while flipping through the books in his hands. He didn't pay attention to Luo Shu's devil fruit. Instead, he paid more attention to his strength. The current strength of the Navy is already strong enough. The 3 generals are at their peak. There are also Sengoku, Garp, Crane, Zepha and others. Even if there is a war with the 3 emperors of the New World, they will almost never lose. Judging from the current situation, if that Navy brat wants to become a general, it will take a long time. But that kid is worthy of our attention. At least he is not like Garp, who has no sincerity towards our world government. The 5-year-old star with mustache pinched his beard and said with interest. He is the one who hates Garp the most. When Monkey D. Dragon rebelled against the Navy and openly established a revolutionary army, he was the first one to do so. One stood up and said that he would use Garp to throw away rats and lure the other party's son out to die, but in the end he was rejected by the other 4. Let's not talk about his value, just look at his behavior towards pirates. He is similar to a Kainu, not indecisive, but the important thing is that he can obey our orders. After all, that kid is a little younger. When he does something amazing, we will directly summon him to come to the Holy Land and meet that kid. The blonde 5-old star, he looks the youngest among the 5, but his mind is one of the best among the 5. Although he also thinks highly of Luo Shu, he seems very tactful and wants to make some tests. As human beings, they can almost see through a person as long as they meet the other person and chat with him for a few words. Then they will decide whether to increase their efforts and spare no effort to support Luo Shu. Yes, that kid is indeed worthy of our fancy in terms of both talent and strength, but we still don't know his impression of the world government and the celestial dragons. Don't forget, the other person's parents are in the Navy. If he gets a with our hearts set on the Navy, haven't we raised a white-eyed wolf? But when the time is right, we can help the other party, such as assigning him a position where it is easier to gain merit. The bald 5-old star, holding a top-notch famous sword, took over the topic and said that there was a bit of haze in his eyes. He didn't know whether it was this way or caused by certain factors. If Luo Shu was here, it can definitely be sensed that the other party is the one with the most powerful aura among the 5 people. And what the other party holds in his hand is one of the most precious swords in this world, the 12 skills of the Supreme Fast Sword, the first generation of Ghost Tetsu. The second generation and the third generation of Ghost are not sure how much stronger they are, but as the master of this sword, one can imagine his strength. Seconded, quote. After the bald 5-old star expressed his opinion, the other 4 people thought about it for a while, but no one refuted it, and the discussion about Luo Shu was declared over. In the end, their approach was to provide some help, but they would not dig too much into Luo Shu before they clearly understood his attitude towards the world government. This is also normal. What kind of people have I never seen among the 5 people who have lived for so many years? And when considering problems, they will always put the interests of the world government at the forefront. It is impossible just because of Luo Shu's strength and talent. Be too optimistic about the other party. You know, if you have the help of the 5 of them, if you want to become the Navy Headquarters Admiral or the Navy Headquarters Marshal, it will be almost easy. Don't look at the fact that the 5 of them are just pushed out to control the existence of the entire world on the surface, but in other ways the power is so great that ordinary people cannot imagine it. 3 days later, many craftsmen were deployed during the Warring States period to improve the building damage caused by the previous battle between Luo Shu and Garp, as well as the shattered Marshal's office. Now it has been restored as before, and it looks brand new, without any trace of it. A baptism of fire. This morning, a large number of Navy personnel gathered in the Navy headquarters and the Marshal's office. All the combatants above the rank of Lieutenant Admiral in the Navy headquarters came here. Even Garp, the alien who least likes to attend meetings, honestly sitting there, stuffing a lot of senbei into his mouth. Buckle, come in, Marshal of the Warring States period. Luo Shu, who was wearing a black suit and a cloak of justice, walked in after hearing the message from the Warring States period, and said hello to the other party. At the same time, he also nodded to a group of naval generals. After all, there were so many people. If you call one by one, there is no need to waste time. All right, everyone is here. There are 2 main things in today's meeting. First, the 5 old stars issued an order to increase our control over the land of the 4 seas. Pirates have been rampant recently. Therefore, the Lieutenant General of this headquarters must at least go to the headquarters every 3 months. Go on a cruise in a sea area. 1 month's time. Warring States waved his hand to Luo Shu to stand in front, and then he said with a serious face. He had considered this matter for a whole day. Instead of letting some incompetent major generals go, it would be better to directly send out the backbone of the Navy headquarters, at least they will not return without success. At the same time, they can give the greatest strength to the pirates living in the world. Yes, Marshal of the Warring States period. All the lieutenant generals, including Peach Rabbit and T. Dolphin, saluted and said in unison that there was no doubt about the Warring States order, not to mention that it was issued by the 5 old stars. They had no reason to refuse and could only obey unconditionally. The second thing is that Colonel Luo Shu of the Navy headquarters has performed outstandingly since he joined the Navy. Not long ago, in the first half of the Grand Line, he killed several pirate captains with bounties as high as 100 million belly, and wiped out more than a dozen pirates. Regiment, based on his merits, I decided to promote him to Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters. This is your appointment letter and badge. I hope you can stick to the justice in your heart and fight the pirates to the end. Major General Luo Shu. Warring States nodded with satisfaction, then he stood up, picked up a document and a shining badge, came to Luo Shu, said with passion, and personally handed over the badge representing the Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, wear it on Luo Shu's shoulder. Please rest assured, Marshal of the Warring States period. I will pour every drop of my blood into the sea under the jurisdiction of our Navy, and I will never let those pirates do whatever they want. After solemnly taking the document, Luo Shu said loudly, but only he knew how much of what he said was true and how false. Congratulations to Major General Luo Shu. To live such an honorable life at such a young age really makes me envious. Yes, I think that when I was his age, I had not yet joined the Navy. It is really incomparable. If my son could be so outstanding, I would be willing to die right now. Quote. For a time, the atmosphere in the entire Marshal's office became lively and no longer as dull as before. Many lieutenant generals surrounded Luo Shu in the middle and congratulated him. There are also people who are envious and jealous of Luo Shu in their hearts, but they are not familiar with Luo Shu, and because of their factional relationship, they cannot be friends with him. The most uncomfortable thing was Garp, who was sitting on the side. After discovering that Luo Shu was looking at him specifically, the corners of his mouth twitched and his face began to darken. He always felt that Luo Shu seemed to be looking at him. Provoke him. However, in this situation, it was impossible for him to jump out and do anything to Luo Shu. At most, he could just curse the other person secretly in his heart. Today's meeting is over. Everyone except Luo Shu can leave. After Warring States talked about other things at length, he signaled that everyone could leave, leaving Luo Shu alone. Obviously, he still had some private things to say to him. System, open Tatu's panel. Ding, the panel is opening. Name, Zhu Yuan. Special talent, top speed. Domineering, intermediate armed color, advanced wisdom color. Physical skill, intermediate. Sword skill, junior great swordsman. Ability, none. Comprehensive strength, SS. As expected of the general's backup, his current strength surpasses that of a lieutenant general. In a few years, there should be no problem for her to grow to SSS. Just when everyone was leaving, Luo Shu subconsciously took a look at the hot-looking Tatu, so he communicated with the system, checked the other party's panel, and thought secretly in his heart. He was not shocked because Tatu had a special talent. In his opinion, a woman can become a top powerhouse, almost 100% possessing special talents. Just like in the original work, Kushiro, who was hiding in the East China Sea, said to his daughter that female swordsmen will never be able to fight due to physical limitations. Nor can she become the best in the world. Although this is a metaphor for swordsmen, in other fields, women are still at a disadvantage. Unless they are born with special talents like Peach Rabbit, Crane, and Charlotte Lingling, they want to grow into the top. A strong man is many times more difficult than a man. That boy, Tatu, who was about to leave, seemed to feel something. She frowned and turned around and glanced around, only to find that Luo Shu was looking at her. After that, she murmured something in a voice that only she could hear, and didn't look back, left. Even if she is somewhat interested in Luo Shu, the monster, who has been promoted the fastest in history in the Navy, as a lieutenant general of the headquarters and the successor of the next general, how can she rush to contact him? Could she? No face. It is even more impossible to be impressed by Luo Shu's heroic face or temperament and turn into the opponent's little fan girl. This kind of thing does not exist in reality. If it is an ordinary female Navy soldier, it is very possible. But for a naval admiral like Tatu, who has experienced strong winds and waves, unless she is insane, even if she is killed, he will not be able to do such a mindless thing. It is not that simple to win the heart of a woman, especially an excellent woman. First of all, your level must be at least equal to hers, so you still have a long way to go. After everyone left, Warring States stroked his braided beard and spoke meaningfully. Obviously, he saw the way Luo Shu had just focused his eyes on Peach Rabbit, but he didn't think much about it. In the Navy headquarters, there are countless people who like Peach Rabbit. Speaking more closely, they are also generals. The T-Dolphin who was added later has always been deeply in love with Tatu, and has publicly confessed his love countless times, but was rejected every time. It can be seen how high Tatu's vision is. Although no one knows about his requirements for his partner, he must be very demanding, otherwise he would not be here now and would not have a boyfriend. What matters is the challenge. She is indeed outstanding, Luo Shu said with a smile. He did not hide this. As the saying goes, everyone loves beauty. If possible, he would like to have something happen with Tatu, especially the tattoo on his thigh. She looks extremely, and combined with that hot figure, she plays right into his hands. Moreover, Tatu's own strength cannot be underestimated. With a woman like this, she can not only help you deal with things within her power. Not only will she not holding you back at the critical moment is the most important factor that makes Luo Shu interested in him. Ha ha ha, okay, let's get down to business. Although you are now a rear admiral at the Navy headquarters, if you stay at the headquarters and rely on going out on cruises every year to catch pirates, the achievements you can obtain will be pitiful, and it will also affect your continued promotion. Now you have three choices: one is to go to the East China Sea, the other is to the North Sea, or stay at the Navy headquarters. I personally recommend you to go to the North Sea, where you have more opportunities to gain achievements, and the pirates in the North Sea are stronger than in other seas. After Warring States laughed, his expression gradually became serious. At the same time, he pointed out several paths for Luo Shu. Since it was related to the other party's future promotion, he directly stated the choice that was most suitable for Luo Shu, but in the end how to choose depends on Luo Shu himself. Beihai, Marshal of the Warring States period. I am willing to work in Beihai. After thinking about the words of the Warring States period, Luo Shu made his own choice. Originally, he wanted to go to the East China Sea, but if he thought about it carefully, if he really went there, it would be really difficult for him to gain merit. There is only one golden lion Shiji, hiding there, and the rest are small fish and shrimps. But with his current strength, he can defeat the golden lion, but it is impossible to capture the opponent, let alone kill him. Superman the Piao Piao fruit ability is too tricky, and if he escapes, even if he can fly, it will be difficult to restrain Shiji. Of course, this is also because his fruit ability is not developed very well, even if he is just getting started. It's too much, how can I deal with it? Shiji, who has already developed the Piao Piao fruit to the point of awakening, does not have the halo of a protagonist, which can infinitely lower the opponent's IQ. With the current temperament of the Golden Lion, if he knew that he was defeated, he would probably use all his strength. As he continued to escape, the other party was no longer the pirate admiral who devoured the world. As for Beihai, as the Warring States period said, the pirates were powerful and relatively numerous. When he got there, he could, while enjoying life, you can happily harvest achievements and at the same time be able to spare more time to hone your own strength. Major General Luo Shu, from today on, you are the top officer of the Beihai G20 branch. This position is usually held by the branch's lieutenant general, but your strength is enough. This is the letter of appointment. You can repair it in the headquarters for a few days before setting off. The pirates in the North Sea are extremely rampant now. I hope you can curb them when you arrive. Warring States smiled with satisfaction, took out a document from the drawer, handed it to Luo Shu, and gave it some instructions. In fact, he had already thought in his heart that with Luo Shu's mind, he would definitely choose North Sea. Yes, Marshal of the Warring States period. After taking the document, Luo Shu saluted Warring States, then turned and left the Marshal's office. He has more important things to do now, that is, after he became the Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters, he has not yet received the system gift to him. Reward. The system is the most important help for him to achieve his goals in this world. This transcendent existence has given him the capital to survive in this world. He doesn't know what powerful abilities or items he will get this time. System. I want to receive the reward. Just after returning to his residence, Luo Shu walked into the room and couldn't wait to communicate with the system in his heart. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming a Rear Admiral of the Navy Headquarters. Reward Marshal D. Teaches Physique. Forehead. Does this mean that I can eat 2 devil fruits now without exploding to death? Listening to the cold notification tone of the system, Luo Shu seemed extremely excited. In his previous life, he was very envious of Blackbeard's physique that could take the double devil fruit. This talent is not unpowerful. Think about it. In the original work, Blackbeard, with one hand secretly and the other shaking, is both entertaining and destructive. He has almost no weaknesses except fear of pain, sea water, and sea rocks, and there is no ability to restrain him. Buzz. Just when Luo Shu was lost in thought, a warm energy flowed through his body. He knew that this was the system helping him transform his body. Call. System. Open my panel. Feeling that his body was further sublimating, Luo Shu almost hummed. It wasn't until a few minutes later that the energy completely dissipated. After he found that there was no change in himself, he took out a breath and gave instructions to the system. Ding! The panel is opening. Host. Luo Shu. Special talents. Copper skin and iron bones, super divine power, natural overlord, alien physique. Domineering. Intermediate overlord color, advanced armed color, advanced knowledge color. Physical skills. Advanced. Sword skills. Not beginner. Ability. Natural system, thunder fruit. Comprehensive strength. SSS. Although the overall strength has not improved, the upper limit of my strength in the future should be increased. 4 special talents. Who in the whole world has as powerful a talent as mine? Looking at his own panel, Luo Shu's eyes flashed with light, and he thought in a very pretentious way. He was not angry because the system did not directly grant him invincible abilities or any artifacts. On the contrary, he was very willing to get something like talent. In his opinion, it was best to cultivate his strength step by step. Moreover, his system is definitely a breath of fresh air in the system world. When the host does not communicate with it, it is as if it is dead. It will never actively make a sound, let alone have any consciousness, and can chat and spank with the host. Luo Shu is extremely satisfied with this. The next day, as usual, Luo Shu was in his residence, practicing armament, physical skills, and developing the ability of the thunder fruit. Until noon, Zepha suddenly visited. Mr. Zepha, try this cigar. The two sat opposite each other on the sofa. Luo Shu took out 2 cigars he got from warring states. He knew that his teacher liked these things, so he started smoking with them. In the Navy headquarters, the purple-haired old man in front of him, apart from his 2 subordinates, he has the best relationship with him. In addition, the other party has worked tirelessly to teach him for 2 years. Luo Shu naturally respects Zepha very much. Hiss, ha, you are determined, Luo Shu. It is an honor for me to be able to teach a disciple like you during my lifetime. I came to you this time mainly to talk about the Navy. I believe you also know that the Navy is divided into 3 major factions, the Aokiji Dove faction, the Kizaru Neutral faction, and the Akainu Hawk faction. The most populous among them is the Dove faction. When I was the admiral of the Navy headquarters, I used to be the most important figure among the Doves, but something happened later and I abdicated because of it. Now Garp has taken over that position. Luo Shu, for the sake of what I have taught you, if you really become an admiral of the Navy headquarters or a marshal of the Navy headquarters in the future, I hope you will not let those dovish generals die a happy death. This is my request. Zepha took a deep breath from the cigar in his mouth, exhaled a large puff of smoke, and then said with emotion. Then, he changed the topic, with a bit of pleading in his eyes. Although he is no longer an admiral of the Navy headquarters, most of his former students have become the mainstay of the Navy, but most of those people joined the Dove faction because of the ideas he instilled, and only a few of them were won over by Akainu and Kizaru. Originally, these words, Zepha he wanted to talk to Luo Shu in a few years, but he found that his disciple's promotion speed was too fast, and he was afraid that if he didn't say anything, he would have no chance in the future. Yes, after all, he was still the one named, no-kill, general. He is always thinking about others. Even if he hates pirates because of the death of his wife and children, he still will not kill them all, let alone the students he once taught. Since a few days ago, there was a big battle between Garp and Luo Shu at the Navy headquarters. He knew that Luo Shu and the people from the Dove faction would face each other sooner or later, and it would probably be Luo Shu who won in the end. Based on his understanding of Luo Shu, this disciple would probably give him let the Dove generals pay a heavy price. That scene was not what he wanted to see, but now, he was not qualified to change other people's choices. In other words, he was no longer at the peak of power. The Admiral of the Navy headquarters, those former students may respect him on the surface, but they may even disdain him in their hearts. But Zepha didn't care, he did the best he could, and as for how things would develop in the future, whatever happens, it just depends on how fate arranges it. Teacher Zepha, what you have done in this kind of selfless spirit, I am afraid no one in the entire Navy headquarters has it. But before that, can you answer a few questions for me? The first question is, did you force those people to join which faction? Second question, do you really think that if you do this, someone will thank you in the end? You are wrong, the most they will do is thank me for showing mercy, and they will not consider you at all. And I think you really don't need to worry about those people. If you betray the Navy now, most of them will come to arrest you or even kill you. Third, and most important question, where do you put me by not letting me take action against those who try to attack me? Luo Shu savored Zepha's words carefully. He didn't come back to his senses until the cigar was half smoked by him. He looked at Zepha's wrinkled face and said to him extremely seriously. He was indeed moved by Zepha's spirit. Although it was only for a moment, he would not admire the other party, let alone recognize him. Zepha's selflessness could be described with a word from his previous life, true, Holy Mother. Yes, you need to add a true word in front of the Holy Mother, otherwise you cannot describe the other party's state. He has read the original work, but he knows what kind of faces the other party's students will look like after Zepha betrays the Navy. Under the leadership of Kizaru, he frantically besieged his former teacher without any mercy. He clearly wanted to take Zepha's head in exchange for credit. But now, Zepha can actually make such a request to him. Luo Shu is now a little doubtful. Is there something wrong with his teacher's head? Do you want to be such a holy mother? He is simply on the edge of retardation. More importantly, the other party does not seem to have considered his mood. Is it possible to only allow those the Dove faction general, under the leadership of Garp and Qingji, was against him? After he won, he still wanted to forgive him. No matter how deep Zepha's affection for him was, Luo Shu would not agree to such an unreasonable request. No, or it can be described as shameless. Forehead. Zepha was stunned by Luo Shu's question. He originally had a lot to say, but at this moment he couldn't say it out and could only let it get stuck in his throat. Luo Shu, actually Teacher Zepha, needless to say. If you are really worried about those white-eyed wolves, it is better to persuade them not to go against me, otherwise you will be responsible for the consequences. The whole room was strangely quiet for a few minutes. Just when Zepha was about to explain again, Luo Shu directly interrupted the other party's remarks. That's right, he didn't want to listen anymore. This is Zepha, he would have punched the others out long ago. That being the case, then I left first. Zepha awkwardly adjusted his sunglasses. He knew that his thoughts were not recognized by Luo Shu, but he would not resent this disciple because of this. As he said before, he had done everything he could do. As for the future, no matter what, we can only leave it to fate. Boom. Wow. The table made of unknown wood was kicked to pieces by Luo Shu. He couldn't help it anymore. In fact, he was already very angry just now. Get out of here. Seeing those ignorant Marines rushing into his room, Luo Shu immediately shouted angrily. He was furious now. These sightless Marines are really looking for trouble. After scolding those Marines, Luo Shu put on the cloak of justice, walked towards a bustling street, where family members of the Navy lived, and a variety of shops were also run there. When Luo Shu was at the Naval Academy, he often came here to improve the food, or to go to the bar to listen to music and drink some wine. Major General Luo Shu, welcome. Are you still in the same position? After seeing Luo Shu's figure, the waiter immediately came forward and greeted him with a smile. Quote. Luo Shu didn't speak, but nodded lightly. Under the leadership of the waiter, He came to an extremely inconspicuous place in the bar and sat down, listening to soothing music to purify his irritable mind. About half an hour later, a young man with short silver hair, wearing a coat with the word, Justice, on it, with a bare chest and a 10-hand hand made of seafloor stone, stepped into the room, a bar. This person is Smoker. He has a sad face and a bit of resentment in his eyebrows. It is obvious that he is in a very bad mood now. It turned out that he returned to Malinfando from Rogtown to report on work. During this period, he found that no one in the Navy was talking about him in private, who was a graduate of the elite class of the Naval Academy and a genius with natural fruit abilities. On the contrary, they were all talking about Luo Shu. He almost lifted the opponent to the sky. He became a rear admiral at the Navy headquarters at the age of only 17, and had a battle with the naval hero Monkey D. Garp without falling into a disadvantage. All of this and a series of things were reported to Smoke. In GE's ears. This made Smoker, who was already arrogant, very uncomfortable. He felt that he was also very good and should be noticed by the Navy, but the reality was very skinny. He had already walked around the Navy headquarters. Even the Navy family members living here mostly talk about Luo Shu. It is precisely because of this that Smoker ran to this bar, ready to drink away his sorrows. But at this moment, he noticed the young man sitting in the corner, sipping wine and wearing a Major General badge on his shoulder. He was sure that the other party was the rear admiral of the Navy headquarters, Luo Shu, who had the reputation of being a monster. So Smoker slowly walked over and came to Luo Shu's table. By some mistake, he pulled out the stool on the side and sat there. Even he didn't know how he could do such a thing. Who asked you to sit here? Luo Shu, who originally raised the cup and was about to drink all the wine in it, was slightly stunned for a moment, and then he asked without raising his head. When Smoker came in before, he had sensed his domineering aura. But with his status, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to say hello, or in other words, the other party was not qualified at all. But he did not expect that Smoker would take the initiative to sit at his table, and there was a bit of anger on his face. As if he wanted to cause trouble, Luo Shu deliberately provoked the other party to see what Smoker wanted to do. How do I? You open this bar, I can sit wherever I want. Who do you think you are? Don't think that just because you become a rear admiral at Marine headquarters, you can do whatever you want in Marineland. I will surpass you sooner or later. Smoge, who was a little confused by Luo Shu's words, subconsciously wanted to explain, but when he was about to blurt out, he suddenly thought of the identity of the person in front of him, so he widened his eyes, a little unwillingly. He yelled at Luo Shu. Because his voice was too loud, everyone in the bar focused their attention, and even the music stopped. Everyone, including the owner of the bar, wanted to know what happened between Smoker and Luo Shu, who were sitting there. Do you have any misunderstanding about me? Or are you just unhappy with me? Luo Shu asked again with a sneer on his face. His mood has improved a lot in this short period of time. If it were before, if Smoker dared to talk to him like this, he would directly take action to make him a good person. But he was very playful and was not ready to end this farce prematurely. He almost guessed why Smoker had such an attitude towards him. After all, he had no grudges with him, and today was even the first time the two of them met. He is convinced that he has not sinned against Smoker before, so there is only one possibility for the other party to behave like this: envy, jealousy and hatred. I just want to tell you that you don't deserve the title of the strongest genius in the history of the Navy, and don't think that being a natural ability user means you are invincible. You just have better luck. As for fighting Lieutenant General Garp without losing, it's obvious that he deliberately let you down, otherwise you wouldn't be able to withstand a punch, and you might be beaten to death. Only those without brains would believe such a thing. Finding that everyone's eyes in the bar were focused here, Smoker spoke even more arrogantly, as if he wanted to expose Luo Shu's true face in front of everyone. After he finished speaking, a few traces of pride flashed across his face. The color in my heart also reduced a lot. Quote. For a moment, the bar was completely quiet. No one dared to speak, let alone pick up Smoker. They all looked at Smoker with dull eyes, as if they were looking at a madman. Ha ha ha. Garp wants me. You may not know that the old guy was beaten twice by me, right? Also, Today I want to teach you a good lesson and let you know what attitude you should use when speaking to your superiors. Major. Luo Shu slowly stood up from the chair, and the laughter in his mouth became louder and louder. He was really amused by Smoker's ignorance. It wasn't until he took a few breaths that he stopped, came down, then he grinned and said to Smoker playfully. Although we are both natural fruit ability users, I have a weapon made from Halu stone, so I will definitely win. Smog frowned. Even though he felt the powerful aura exuding from Luo Shu from time to time, he still did not choose to retreat. Instead, he kept comforting himself in his heart. At this time, Smoker had not yet been exposed to hockey, mainly because his physical fitness was not up to par, so Zepha did not teach it to him prematurely, or even mentioned it, because he did not want him to be distracted. As we all know, armed hockey is like invisible armor. It can not only enhance one's own defense, but also evolve into attacks. At the same time, it can capture the entity of a person with natural fruit abilities. But if you want to learn armed domineering, there is an innate condition, that is, you must have an excellent physique, otherwise you can only rely on a lot of time to polish it, and the number of years a person can quickly improve his strength is very short, and there is no special talent. With the blessing, almost everyone will come into contact with armed color hockey at a very young age. Obviously, a person like Smoker, who only relies on his fruit ability to achieve his current strength, will almost always be beaten once he encounters someone with armed domineering power. Even a person with relatively strong physical skills can beat Smoker with a weapon made of sea tower stone. White Fist. Smoge roared, his arms turned into smoke, and two fists quickly shot at Luo Shu. There was no other way. The aura emanating from Luo Shu made him feel very depressed. After considering the principle of striking first, it is better to take advantage of Luo Shu. Finally, he resolutely made the choice to attack Luo Shu first. Boom. The attack is painless and painless. A rookie like you, if you are not a natural devil fruit user, is not worthy of the position of lieutenant commander in the Navy headquarters. Get out of here. Whoosh. Luo Shu did not dodge and used his chest to withstand Smoker's two fists. His body did not even move. Compared with Garp's iron fist, the opponent's attack seemed to be aimed at him. As if scratching an itch, he taunted and hit Smog on the side of the face with a kick. Even though the opponent entered elementalization, he was kicked out and smashed the wall of the bar. Ahem, how can it be? I am a natural fruit ability user. How could he hit my physical body? A few hundred meters away, Smoker was lying in the ruins of a building. He put his hands on the ground and tried to stand up, but found that the strength in his body seemed to have been drained. Coupled with the heartbreaking pain, he had now begun to suspicious of life. Quote. The civilians who saw this scene, as well as a small number of the Navy who were on this street, opened their mouths. However, no one stepped forward to stop it. Everyone with a discerning eye saw that the perpetrator was Rear Admiral Luo Shu of the Navy headquarters. This the rising naval genius. How? Didn't anyone tell you about the ability of armed color hockey? Are you so arrogant with this little strength? Go back to teacher Zepha and study hard, or you will die in the hands of pirates one day. Correct. Remember to compensate for the damage to this street. Luo Shu walked up to Smoker and stepped on the other person's face with his foot. He was in a good mood now and simply stopped embarrassing Smoker. He said something to him and turned around to leave. Only Smoker, who was lying there, gnashing his teeth, and the civilians and Navy who were watching this scene from a distance were left. This incident was just a small episode, and Luo Shu didn't take it to heart. People like Smoker, there are so many minor characters in the Navy. They don't even have the qualifications to be his confidant. Whether it's Drake or Thor, just picking one out can make Smoker cry. As a Rear Admiral at the Navy headquarters, it would be a bit embarrassing to attack a rookie. About 20 minutes later, just when Luo Shu was about to return to his residence, a beautiful figure appeared in front of him and teased him. You are serious? I'm just teaching him the principles of life. Could it be that Lieutenant General Peach Rabbit can't stand what I'm doing, or that he feels sorry for Smoker, so he wants to stand up for him? Looking at the familiar face of the other party, Luo Shu said with a chuckle. He had already sensed Tatu with his domineering appearance. The other party had been waiting here for a few minutes. He definitely wanted to meet him on purpose, and the reason why Peach Rabbit would say this probably because the other party saw the scene where he beat Smoker away. How can I dare to show off? Everyone knows that you don't even pay attention to Lieutenant General Garp. I am a backup to the general. I don't think I have the strength of a naval hero. If I fight you, I will probably not be your opponent. Why should I embarrass myself? Now. Tatu shook her head and still said in a teasing tone. Just as Luo Shu thought, she did see the embarrassed Smoker just now, so she deliberately waited here for a while, just to talk to this person. It's just for her to meet some young people she's interested in, that's all. With your strength, as long as you concentrate on practicing swordsmanship and slightly improve your armament, domineering and physical skills, you will be able to serve as the admiral of the Navy headquarters in a few years. However, if you want to truly reach the top level in this world with your own strength, you need to overcome one of your weaknesses as a woman, and that is your physique. If you can get a powerful animal-type phantom beast devil fruit, then you will usher in a new transformation, thereby sublimating your strength. Only then will you be considered one of the highest combat powers in the Navy headquarters. Luo Shu pinched his chin, and then began to talk, just like a senior expert preaching to a junior, pointing out all the weaknesses of Tatu and the areas that need to be supplemented in the future. He is after looking at Peach Rabbit's panel. As long as the opponent's armament, domineering and physical skills reach a high level, the overall strength will enter SSS. If the swordsmanship is at the next level, Peach Rabbit can be comparable to Sengoku and Zepha. But if it wants to reach SSS+, I am afraid that it will be difficult to achieve it by just relying on one's own efforts, because Peach Rabbit's body is always weak, which will affect the opponent's upper limit. And the role that ordinary animal type or ancient devil fruits can play, for that time it's not enough for Peach Rabbit. The best choice is the Phantom Beast devil fruit, which is even rarer than the natural type. Your vision is really vicious. No wonder you can fight with Vice Admiral Garp, but you are too whimsical. Even the Marshal Sengoku of the Navy headquarters would find it almost impossible to obtain the Phantom Beast devil fruit, let alone me, a general. Made up for later. Do you think it's Chinese cabbage and you can get it if you want it? After listening to Luo Shu's words, Tatu was stunned. The question raised by the other party was exactly what she was thinking about. Of course, she had never thought about the devil fruit of the Phantom Beast species, and she did not dare to think about it, because she felt that she didn't have such good luck, so she pretended to be angry and said. That's true. Phantasmal beast species are rarer than natural species and are indeed difficult to obtain. Even if you have a good relationship with some people who are at the top of the world government, you have little chance of obtaining them. In the entire ocean, there are only a few known users with the ability to possess the Phantom Beast fruit. Luo Shu nodded, pretending to think. Not only did he not comfort Tatu with words, but he said it with deep meaning. Judging from what you said, is it possible that you have a way to obtain the Phantom Beast devil fruit? Do not make jokes. If you have that kind of thing, give it to the Navy headquarters. Marshal Sengoku will definitely promote you to the rank of Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters. Even if some people don't want to see this scene, there's nothing they can do to stop it. Feeling that there was something in Luo Shu's words, Tatu said with a solemn expression as he thought about it carefully. She was not joking. If Luo Shu really presented a Phantom Beast devil fruit to the Navy headquarters, and relied on the other party's strong strength, no other due to his merits, the Warring States period will give Luo Shu a promotion. Even if he is an ordinary civilian with little strength, if he comes to make a deal with the Navy with a beast devil fruit, as long as the conditions are not too excessive, the Warring States period will 100% agree. A powerful Phantom Beast devil fruit, its gold content is too great. If an elite lieutenant general who is good at physical arts eats it and develops it to a certain extent, his own strength will not reach the level of a general. Exaggerate. Ha 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 ha, who knows? Even if I had it, I would not exchange it for an official position, but give it to the people around me. Successfully aroused Tatu's curiosity. After Luo Shu laughed a few times proudly, he dropped a few words and left. Today, he and Tatu have talked enough. When pursuing a woman, you must take it step by step and don't be in a hurry. Otherwise, it is very likely that the result will be in vain. The main thing is that Tatu is not the kind of person who is unscrupulous for profit. It is impossible to agree to Luo Shu just because of a Phantom Beast devil fruit. Otherwise Luo Shu will not be interested in it. Baffling. Looking at Luo Shu's leaving back, Tatu secretly spat, but she was thinking about Luo Shu's words in her heart. She first pointed out her own shortcomings, and then talked about the phantom beast devil fruit. She always had a feeling that was Luo Shu, a marine who was much younger than her. He had many secrets. Moreover, the whole person seemed to be in a fog, so that no matter how hard she tried, she could not see through it. In this way, Luo Shu rested in Marineland. A few days later, he left again on a warship. During this period, he almost never left the house except for practicing. This time, no one came to see him off. In the past, Zepha would definitely see him off in person, but because the other party has not gotten over the embarrassment of what happened last time, so naturally he doesn't want to meet Luo Shu. However, those lieutenants have accepted the mission and went to other sea areas to arrest pirates. It can be said that they are very busy. Beihai is such a disgusting place. I haven't been back for a long time. Drake sighed with some melancholy on his face. Beihai was his hometown, but he didn't have a good impression there. It was more of a very unbearable childhood experience. Beihai has the toughest folk customs among all the seas. Most of the pirates there are very strong, and the bounties are high. It's quite suitable for a superior to gain merit. Thor on the side said with a smile. He has now perfectly integrated into the identity of Luo Shu's subordinates. No matter what happens, the first thing he considers is Luo Shu's interests. He thinks Beihai is a good place. From now on it is most suitable for Luo Shu to develop. Yes, we will live there for a long time this time. If nothing else happens, we should stay for a year or two. During this period, you must improve your strength quickly. This era is on the verge of going crazy. Nowadays, the three emperors are dividing the new world, and the red-haired pirates have suddenly emerged, and they have great momentum to compete for the fourth emperor, but our navy seems to be a little too low-key. When I have some power in my hands, I will make changes. When the time comes, I will need your help. Luo Shu looked at the sea in the distance and said without looking back. He had a clear understanding of this era. If the navy wants to stand up and be truly recognized by all the civilians in the world, it can only make those who stand tall kill the pirates at their peak, otherwise ordinary people will always think that the navy is weak and the pirates are strong. Therefore, people with some talents choose to go to sea to become pirates, for the meaningless secret treasure and the title of Pirate King. When they considered becoming a navy, they believed that the navy was incompetent. Only by changing their minds, the navy would go a step further and get a large amount of fresh blood from all over the world every year to maintain the operation of the entire navy, even if most of those people are cannon fodder, but its spirit of justice is worthy of praise. All forces actually need spiritual thinking. The navy represents justice. The world government claims to be for the people, pirates are for freedom, and the revolutionary army, like the world government, is for the people, and those people are trying to live. Thinking about these things, Luo Shu will sneer. In this chaotic world, the most important thing is strength. As long as you are strong, you can accomplish any goal you have. Yes, we will swear allegiance to the commander to the death. After hearing Luo Shu's words, Drake and Thor immediately stood in awe and bowed to Luo Shu in unison. There's no need to be so nervous, just always push yourself and don't slack off. As my subordinates, Luo Shu, you will be able to get more things than you can imagine in the future. The title of wife and shadow is just the most basic reward. A person must have a goal in this life. Since you choose to follow me, I will definitely not let you down. Luo Shu turned around and looked at the two people who were extremely respectful to him. He couldn't help but nodded with satisfaction, and then drew some big cakes. This is a skill that every superior must master to gain the loyalty of his subordinates. He was naturally self-taught and used it skillfully. He didn't believe that Thor and Drake didn't have pursuits, otherwise they wouldn't have followed him. They didn't see hope in him, Luo Shu. With the talents of the two of them, even if they are not favored by Luo Shu, they will definitely be favored by the top leaders of other forces. But don't forget that Luo Shu is alone and in the stage of just developing. If he concentrates on assisting him to grow to peak, as one of his first batch of confidants, you can imagine the benefits you can get. A week later, Luo Shu's warship finally entered the North Sea. During the period, it only wiped out an unknown pirate group, and the rest of the time it was traveling at full speed. At the same time, at the port of the Navy G20 branch, rows of neatly dressed, serious-faced and burly naval soldiers were standing. They were divided into several square formations, with a road paved with red carpets in the middle. Standing at the front were several middle-aged Marines with badges on their shoulders. They were all officials of this branch. Among them there are also 2 branch major generals, but judging from their age, they may be in their 40s. If nothing else, they will not be promoted in this life. Also, I don't know if the new commander will like it if we do this. He claims to be the most powerful genius in the history of our Navy. If he doesn't do this and punishes us for it, wouldn't it be tragic? A colonel from the naval branch said stutteringly while adjusting his collar. Do we do nothing, just waiting for the other party to arrive? And another branch colonel, although he was middle-aged, he had a hot temper. He immediately yelled at the colleague who had been with him for many years. He thought it was right to do this. At least he could express it to the new commander. A kind of respect. Okay, stop arguing. Regardless of whether the other party likes it or not, we have to do it. This is basic etiquette. Recently, the number of pirates in the sea area we are responsible for is increasing, and they are becoming more powerful. If they are not controlled, we will all be removed from our posts when the news reaches the headquarters. A branch major general standing at the front waved his hand to signal the colonels to shut up. And he said with some worry. He didn't think about whether Luo Shu would like the things they arranged, but he was thinking, if he doesn't clean up the pirates around him, his official position may not be guaranteed. At his age, he knows that his official position cannot be promoted, but he doesn't want to lose it because of this. So he can only pin his hopes on coming here. Luo Shu, who serves as the highest officer. Yes, instead of worrying about whether Major General Luo Shu will punish us, we should think about how to tell him about the pirates. Another branch major general said with a wry smile. He had the same idea as the former. He and others were too weak to encircle and suppress those pirate groups. But if this kind of thing was brought to the surface, it could only be said that it was they are incompetent. But if they say it politely, how should they speak to Luo Shu? This situation is more embarrassing. Look, sir, the navies are all lined up and ready to welcome you. 2 hours later, Luo Shu's warship slowly appeared on the sea a kilometer away from the Navy G20 branch. After Thor saw the scene at the port in the distance, he immediately said to Luo Shu respectfully. These guys are really smart. They are clearly trying to please our commander by holding a welcome ceremony here. Drake's face on the side also improved a lot. He was still thinking before that the Navy in this branch would not welcome their arrival and make some jokes, but now he is not worried. This scene is also what he wants to see. Interesting. Luo Shu, who was standing on the deck, looked at the scene in the distance, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and murmured softly. No matter whether those people welcomed him from the bottom of their hearts or not, but this preparation ceremony for him, Luo Shu said he liked it very much. Major General Luo Shu is arriving soon. Fire off the salute. Boom, boom, boom. As Luo Shu's warship got closer and closer to the port, after the command of a major general of the branch, the cannonballs hit the sky one after another, and the deafening sounds resounded throughout the entire Navy G20 branch. At this moment, every sailor's face was filled with a smile. It was not known whether it was discussed in advance or whether he was really happy for the arrival of Luo Shu, the highest officer. Wow, see Major General Luo Shu. After Luo Shu, Thor, and Drake jumped to the port, the Navy, led by several generals, saluted a standard military salute and shouted in unison. The movements and sounds were so neat and uniform that even Luo Shu looked at him a little. He had to admit that whether these people's actions had ulterior motives or deliberate training effects, Luo Shu was very satisfied with them anyway. Very good, very good. I have seen your performance. From today on, you will train hard and do your job well. If there is anyone who performs outstandingly, I will promote him. Now everyone is dismissed and everyone returns to their respective posts. Officials at school level and above stay. After Luo Shu glanced around, he said loudly to the thousands of naval soldiers. As the highest officer of this branch, he naturally wanted to say a few words, but he was not a person who liked nonsense, so he could only summarize it in simple words, one sentence: if he does well, he will be promoted to the other party's official position. Yes, Major General Luo Shu. As expected, After hearing Luo Shu's words, the voices of these Marines became a little louder, and then they quickly left the port. What do they want as cannon fodder? It is nothing more than risking their lives to fight the pirates. You can just get the opportunity to get promoted and make a fortune. First of all, you two can go home and take care of your wife and children. The Navy doesn't need trash like you two. Others follow me to the office to report. After the Navy dispersed, Luo Shu turned his attention to several school-level officers and 2 branch major generals. Then, he pointed to the 2 naval branch major generals standing at the end, indicating their official positions. After being dismissed, he took Derek and Thor to the office building in the distance. The others looked at the 2 colleagues who were stunned there, but they didn't say anything, but quickly followed Luo the footsteps of Shu and the others. The so-called 3 fires of new officials when they take office. If they dare to speak for those 2 people, then Luo Shu's fire is likely to burn on them. People are selfish, let alone these naval officials. Mainly because Luo Shu discovered that the strength of those 2 people was not as good as some powerful Navy soldiers. Their official positions were clearly promoted by the previous top officer of the G20 branch, so he dismissed them and kicked them out of the Navy. There was no problem. Now this branch, now that he is here, he, Luo Shu, can only have one voice here. Anyone who dares to disobey his orders will not get any good results. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.